feel like, okay, now is the time, right? Because I've done that work. I've healed to the point that I'm like, I need to go help others heal because there's so much suffering.
Yeah.
And that was a big step for me, right? I realized even as I started to talk about some of these things out loud, like the word suicide, I was like, oh, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. I did the last opener, so you're doing this one.
Welcome
Can we
to...
do I was like, I'm sorry. Can we do the pro? We got to do some intro music.
like welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Matt and Monica podcast. We have Mallory with us, and she drove 7 hours to come have an awesome conversation.
7 hours to see us. Like, how freaking weird is that? I mean, no, it's
that
awesome.
means so much. I know it does sound weird.
No, like it's just, it's humbling though. No, we appreciate you taking the trip out here.
Yeah.
We had a great night last night. We went out down to Sylvan Beach. We went down to Harpoon Eddies and listened to music and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the full conversations we had yesterday were so flowy and, you know, just felt awesome and good. And the connection is just amazing. And that's really, really cool and hard to come by sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
It is.
I think a lot of importance comes out of people's stories, as we know. Like a lot of our podcasts have been covering adversity and stuff, and it's like they say you can't really compare adversity, which I kind of disagree. You definitely you can compare what people went through in life, and a lot of times it defines who they are, and especially you. You can tell you're. It's almost like unfortunate, but fortunately, you're 100% pure. As far as I'm concerned, you're just a real person, and you know, it's just sad how people have to get there, you know, because but in the same sense, like myself, speaking for myself, it's really, really, really beneficial thing going through that adversity.
Yeah. And it is sad when people have to go through hard things to get where you are supposed to be, but not everyone uses it like you did.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really because honestly, they don't have the tools, right?
Right.
And like I try to talk about so much, like mindfulness truly is something that saved my life. It's saved my life. It's changed my life. It's elevated my life in ways that I could never have fathomed. Before, you know, and it's the consistency with it. And like you said, it is sad what people have to go through on one level, but it's also empowering, and it's also inspiring to see, right, someone come out on the other side. And hopefully, like you said, other people can become really aware of those struggles and say, okay, I can do this too.
I'm not going to let it tear me down and eat me alive forever. I'm going to use this and grow.
Yes. And that's why, honestly, I really am just so passionate about giving those tools back because it's something that everyone should have access to. I mean,
so did you learn all of that on your own?
I wish, but no, I had lots of divine intervention. You know what I mean? I had mentors show up in my life, but I sought that out. I knew that I really wanted a different life, and I knew that it was out there, right? But I struggled a lot with depression from a very young age, and it just really kind of continued, and I just didn't understand how to navigate any of that, right? And I think our Western medical system has very specific ways of handling it that are there's no unique stuff, right? Everyone is herded into the same kind of
just a number.
Options, kind of options of I guess healing, but they really see it as kind of a Band-Aid, I think, you know, where I know this isn't working, like this is not it from a young age. But you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you're not surrounded by that and you're not in an environment that is helping you to process these things or giving you those tools, giving you healthy outlets, it's hard when you're in so much pain and suffering to say, okay, I'm going to go find this now, right? Where do I look? Sure, we can Google stuff, but where do you start?
That's the hardest part,
And
you say you're 50% of the way there if you can just start.
And honestly, just having the mindfulness is a massive piece, right? When you can become aware of something, it's like, oh, okay. Well, now I can't really turn away from that. So it's also like once you start to go in, because that's where the work is, right?
Well, if you don't recognize it, you can't fix anything.
That's right.
You don't know what's going on. You don't know it's there, or you're so used to it, you don't recognize that
you think
maybe
it's
there's
just
an
you.
issue. Right.
Yeah. And you may not even notice what the emotion is, right? You may be living with so much guilt and you don't know. You're like, that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
Right.
Until you start to go inward and do that work and you start to look at that and it's like, oh, that's guilt.
Then
I'm carrying guilt.
Feel the other way and you're like, I felt like that for so long, or you can change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, our brains are a incredible operating system, right? So powerful, and that can be used in good or bad, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it can either kind of overtake itself, if we're not able to step back. And a huge thing for me along the way, honestly, that was a really eye-opening moment, was the moment that I can remember I was reading a book, and it said, if you can step back and hear yourself thinking, who's listening?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I can hear that, right? I can observe that. Like, wow. I realized I'm not my thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, my true self is listening. And it was such a pivotal moment for me because I realized, okay, I can step away from some of these repetitive thoughts, these images, right? The things that were creating so much suffering and pain for me, right? That I just didn't know how to get out of because it was overtaking every part of my life. I was living it every day.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. And I just thought, right, that's just who I am. I was just kind of born depressed, and all these things that I thought that's just part of who I am. And then as things happened in life, I just thought, this is really kind of how I'm meant to be, right? Or how it's not going to change. And this whole hopelessness came on. And it's really amazing because I didn't even know that I was hopeless until years after, when I really started to get better, that I was like, oh, I was hopeless.
Yeah, without hope, you can't do anything, in my opinion. I think it's pretty much, if not the biggest, I think it might be the biggest problem in this entire society nowadays, especially with the drug epidemic.
Yeah, why would you fight for anything if you don't have any hope?
Yeah,
like,
you
what's
think this
the
is
point,
just the way it is.
So
and like
you
I
need
was telling you
that.
guys, there's so much overstimulation that people are so desensitized. Like, how can you care about anything when you're inundated with everything? Right. So people are at a place where they're shutting down, they're losing hope. I think we have a lot of systems that are overwhelmed, right? And they're not supporting the need. I think there's a lot of good intentioned organizations and people out there, right? But there's a disconnect.
Well, and I think there's so many people that just think it's so broken that there's nothing they could do about it. And
that's right.
Like, who am I? I'm just a small person. I'm just a small individual that has no say. Which, if everybody thinks that, they win.
Right. I was going to say, nothing will happen.
They could be anybody. It doesn't even have to be government related. It could be anybody. But as soon as you realize, like, everybody has a voice, and if everybody were to utilize that and back that thought process, like, this world would be a very different place. And
I think it's so true. And it's so powerful. I think the use of meditation, because it helps us to realize when we go inward, right, which is usually what all of us are avoiding, because we are programmed in a society that's consumerism in marketing and all of these things to tell us the solution is outside of us. Right? Keep seeking, keep doing this. And it's like, we're empty.
Take this and we'll make you feel better.
Exactly.
Band-Aid.
Yes, exactly. Escape, another escape mechanism. Here, avoid that feeling. Run from this. Oh, you have a
or you shouldn't feel this. You shouldn't feel that, but you should feel all of it.
Yes, exactly.
And then go from there.
And
that's right.
Consistently, when it came to meditation, I just realized all these successful people that I was looking up online, just, people I was listening to talk, Jordan Peterson, you name it. Like, a lot of people are talking about meditation. I'm like, I can never do that because I believe I have undiagnosed ADD for sure. Like, my mind's just a million different directions. But guided meditation with VR has allowed me to, really tap into that. And it's been hugely beneficial to me, among other things, as far as just spirituality, religion, going to church, and just investing in myself, investing in ourselves, eating better, exercising more. Definitely could eat better, but I try to work out to make up for whatever I'm lacking there.
But you're saying all this stuff, and it's not, I think people just want one thing to fix everything.
It's not one thing.
It's not just one thing.
It's either you put in effort and you're going to get the results, or you don't put in effort and you're going to be whoever you are, which may be a miserable individual. And if that's who you want to be, then that's by all means.
People don't want to put the work in.
And maybe it's not that they don't even want to, but it's like they're so afraid to.
Or where do you
or
start?
they don't know how.
Right. And there's so much fear and shame and stigma around not being okay. Sure, there's sayings like, it's okay not to be okay.
Right.
But is it?
People judge.
Are we really welcoming people and their pain with open arms to support them in an unconditional, loving way, right?
Yeah.
Or are we, like you said, afraid, like I was saying, afraid to go there because they don't have the tools. They don't really know how to face those things. And so they're avoidant, right? They're on autopilot.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us, when we start going into meditation, for myself personally, it was so funny because I thought the same thing, like, I can't meditate. My brain is all over the place. This is not working. But it's like, actually, that's when it is working.
Yeah.
Because you are now, like I was telling you guys, you're taking back control of the operating system, right? You're saying, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to acknowledge and hear and see all of these urges to get up and go shower, or I'm hungry. Your brain is going to pull you in so many directions because it is annoyed that it is not on its autopilot, right?
And it's like running too. Like, you get better at doing it over time. You can't just expect to try to meditate one time and be like, oh, this doesn't work.
Right.
That's like going and trying to like run 10 miles and like making it
doing
half mile into it and expect
and it helps so much, I think, to have that education behind the brain, right? Behind the operating system, the neurological system, and how it works. Like, that for me was so empowering to actually seek out, other tools, because I started to realize, like, oh, we can go in there. Wait, this has all been put in there, and it didn't happen overnight, so it's going to take some time, right? And if you're committed to that and you're willing to go in, get ready to get uncomfortable. Yeah. Because it is. Your brain and your body, right, is addicted to all of those emotions. And those are chemical reactions. Every thought, conscious and unconscious, right, are fueling our behaviors and how we feel and everything. And most of us are escaping that because we're like, oh, I don't feel good. I got to do this or this, right? You're running from so much because it's like, okay, I go in there, I get quiet, and then what? Right? Or you go to therapy and you talk for an hour, and then it's like, okay, I'll see you in a month or in a week. And now you're triggered, you're in your car and you're like, okay, did that help? Right. Or am I now scared because I'm, not knowing how to process this? Right. And I think I had to go through so many different types of therapy because I knew that I knew that I needed some help to figure out how to navigate the place emotionally that I was at. I had just had so much trauma from a young age, right, that I didn't understand and had no idea how to process. And I think, like you guys were saying, it's kind of sad, what people have to go through sometimes, but I look at it now and it's amazing because I had a really bad car accident when I was 2 weeks before my 19th birthday. And that was the catalyst that really launched me into understanding there's more power within me than I could ever imagine. Right. And my friend did die in that accident, and it was definitely a tragic situation, but it also turned into this beautiful launching pad, right, for my life. And the radical acceptance of life is unfair, right? Life is hard. And we are actually the ones creating the suffering from that, though. Unconsciously, because we don't have the tools. We're not brought up to have the emotional intelligence and life skills to navigate the stressors and all these things, right? So I think it was so powerful to really have actually a neuropsychologist. I'll never forget him. It's like those divine intervention moments, right? Like where you realize this is something bigger going on. Maybe I didn't so much in the moment, but looking back now, it's like, oh man, these moments are the things that led me to the woman I am today. Right. And I'm so grateful for those. Like, as challenging as they were, that's what, we're forged in the fire. That's really,
that point is where I noticed my life to really change, is when I realized, like, just be grateful for everything you've experienced, good or bad, because it's really, it gives contrast to everything. Because if you had a perfect life your entire life, you're never going to appreciate anything.
Nothing is perfect, right? It goes back to, again, like the image that we're expected to uphold within society, right? And it's uncomfortable when someone's not upholding that, right? They might be facing those challenges and talking about it, and I think it's becoming more and more normalized, but like you said, it's so important. It really is. Because gratitude is the foundation for everything. And when we're seeking abundance and fulfillment, right, and contentment or peace, whatever it is you're chasing, slowing down to get in the here and now, the best way is gratitude. Because it's a whole perspective change, and it really shifts your whole brain chemistry as well.
And sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I listened to somebody recently say something: you can combat any anxiety with having gratitude. And I realized that is such a thing. And if people could just, sitting around being miserable about your life. Anybody could do that. I could do that right now. I could be miserable. And granted, I have a very good life, and I'm not complaining by any means, but there's enough I got going on that's negative to the point I could allow it to overtake all my other thoughts.
Yeah.
What I'm going through, what I've been through is very, very real adversity.
Yes.
And just like you know,
Yes.
your story honestly is one of those stories, which there's not many, that makes me feel like she's given me a reason to, you know, proceed and continue on, because if she can do it, I got to be able to do it.
Aw.
Like,
No, like-
talking about
so
hope,
happy to hear,
like
seriously.
no matter how, you know, people like us are trying to spread hope, we need a little bit of hope too. And
sure.
you definitely talking to you and digging deep gives us hope
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Because honestly, that's what I'm like. We all need to lift each other up.
Yeah,
right?
well-
We need to share
Yes.
the challenges, but like you were saying, keep it in a moving upward and forward and lifting each other up, right?
Yes.
Giving that hope.
Yep.
And I think we can all heal a lot more if we start to do that.
And I think we can all heal each other as
Absolutely.
well. You know, hence
Yeah.
what you're doing with the nonprofit and whatnot. Like, you know, and which I think hearing about your nonprofit's incredibly important. But it's like, what is her story? Because and for me, like for example, like when we went down and recorded Bernard Tony Jr. If I didn't know his adversity, you know, he worked at the White House and stuff, which is all very, very impressive, and he has a great story. But if I didn't know his adversity, my interest would have been very different than going down there and talking to this guy.
Right.
And the fact that he grew up from inner city and like on, you know, and like with your story and with what you went through, I'm like, I got to talk to this person. And even more so than just because of your story, just because you're a genuine person as well. But yeah.
Well,
I'm
it's
so
just
grateful to be here for real.
Oh my gosh,
This
we love it so much.
opportunity and to connect with you guys.
Yes.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I'm just so also inspired by what you guys are doing, and so thankful that you're out here, you know, forging the path. Like that's what it is.
It's not easy.
No,
Ugh.
and
Isn't it?
so much vulnerability, which is hard. That's like the hardest thing we can do, right? Is be vulnerable. And
But you coming on here, it's the same for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine driving 6 hours without her with me because we were
my
nervous
God.
together.
7 hours.
Well, yeah.
7 hours,
I keep
babe.
saying 6. Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole nother hour on there. It's worth mentioning. But
totally kidding.
that's just awesome though that you had the audacity to be able to do that.
Well, I'll tell you,
Yes.
I'm just so ready, you know, to step into really my true north. You know, I think back to what you were saying too, right? Like we all need a little hope sometimes. And I think just because we go through so much and we inspire other people or we want to lead them, right, or encourage them, it doesn't mean that life does not continue to happen to us as well,
Yeah.
right? We're still human.
Right.
And it's just a time where we really have to get mindful and use our skills too, right? And we continue to keep walking forward and connecting and healing with people in transparency, because that's truly what helps us to move through it, is knowing we're not alone, knowing we are connected in more ways than we can imagine.
Right.
And there's more parallels in our stories sometimes than we can even imagine.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The universe did not bring our paths together to cross for nothing.
Right.
And I think when
It's
we trust
no
in
reason.
that,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like there's something more.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And leaning into that and the unknown, right? That's where
Yeah.
growth happens. That's where
Yes.
there's like these amazing moments in life that it's like, oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's being in the here and now and being open to be vulnerable and share and push that, right?
And being open to notice that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the more I've been growing and changing and me recognizing that about myself is like mind blowing to me. Just it's crazy. And doing it together is very I don't want to use the word powerful because I feel like that's too harsh of a word, but the strength, I think, doing it together.
I mean, it is powerful.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an entirely different person than I was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like myself more than I ever have as well. Like, not in a cocky way by any means
Yeah.
either, but
You're allowed to like yourself and love yourself. You should.
Yeah.
Everyone
and that's-
needs to.
I think that's what the meditation does, right? It helps us to go in and it really helps us all to connect to our true self.
Yeah.
And to actually show some compassion to ourselves and, and empathy.
Yes.
You know, if we can go in there with a loving stance and you know, be kind of an unbiased observer of the mind, right? And say, like, what am I saying to myself?
Right.
And just get so curious. And I think meditation holds space for us to just, you know, be quiet for a moment, to be able to listen to what's actually running through our minds,
Yeah.
because we're on autopilot.
Yeah.
Right. And so it takes a minute though. Like you said, it's practice because you sit down and all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this. Right. And then you're in there and then it's like, oh, I want a coffee. Oh, I have to go.
I need to do laundry.
Oh, I'm
this.
so hungry.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's like, okay, I'm not even doing this right. And it's like, this whole argument internally. And it's like, well, that's where you have to really continue sitting. Right. Continue pushing through. Just and realizing it's an urge. Right. It's an urge and it's going to come and it's going to pass. But when you can separate again, right, from those thoughts, from those things and realize I'm the observer right now. And I literally sometimes even answer myself like, okay, I hear you. And I promise you we're going to get all those things right in a few minutes. But right now, let's take some time to really go in and check in, right, and see. And I think, finding that sweet spot and that moment of gratitude during meditation for me personally in the morning is so powerful because it's like, it just bursts your heart open and it gives you this energy that it's almost like once you find that, and like with you guys, like doing this, you see the life change, you see and feel that, the consistency, because you're not always motivated.
You got to experience, before we leave, we got to remember, you got to experience the VR trip before you leave.
For sure.
Oh my gosh.
It's wild.
I want to.
It's wild. And I'm confident you'll end up ordering.
Loving it. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see about that.
I think it's relevant for the viewers as well too. Just if you want to talk about your background, because it's impressive without obviously mentioning any companies or whatever you're comfortable talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, we can even so my background, I think life, right? Soldier of life. No. But I
warrior.
think, yeah, for sure. No doubt. But I think in my career path, most recent, I'm so grateful for the experiences that I had. And like you said, I wish that I could talk a little more openly and publicly right now about it, but unfortunately, I cannot. But
Same here.
It
Understandable.
It's definitely one of the world's largest organizations, and it is one for the elite. So I will say it is definitely a very high pressure environment, very politically driven. It's a very large corporate environment, right? Which for me, I am probably not the most corporate mindseted individual, but I do believe that's probably part of the reason I was kind of put there, right? Yeah. So it did ignite this true north in me. So I'm so grateful for the experience because I learned so much. But I was working in talent acquisition, to help essentially grow the company in a massive direction right now. They're undergoing a lot of growth. So interviewing, right, like finding the right candidates, headhunting, and making sure that I'm actually finding people that are going to fit the culture within the organization as well. So I just learned so much being in that space. And it wasn't an HR department, but I also worked on a military transition program there. So that was about 2 years in, and I think all of a sudden something ignited in me, and I'm like, whoa, never did I see myself caring so much about, it was actually related to maintenance, right? So aircraft maintenance. And something ignited in me, man. I got this curiosity and I just dove in head first, and I just learned so much about the entire industry, right, itself, which was really, really cool because it was something so different. I had come from, healthcare before. So I had, taught yoga for 8 years and really led meditation as well prior to this. So I, did a lot of different things. I went to nursing school. I did some hospice care, decided that was probably not a great fit for me after a couple years. It was a great experience, but I have a big open heart, and sometimes that's hard to leave.
Too
everything.
hard to,
So I recognize that, and I was really committed to figuring out like what am I most passionate about, because I am a Gemini, so I have a lot of passions. So I
when's your
from
birthday?
there, May 28th.
Well, May 30th. Well,
oh, really?
okay.
Nice. Okay.
May 17th.
Yeah.
So different.
Oh, nice.
Taurus, but
you're still there. Yeah, that's awesome. We're all May. That's cool. Who would have thought another alignment?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I love it.
I know, me too. So I was in health. So I decided to go to the business side of healthcare, get into recruiting. I knew that I loved helping people. That was like the one core thing that I knew, right?
Yeah.
So I tried all these different things on, and eventually it led me, like I said, to this new talent acquisition space that I just left actually on Monday. So I am now pursuing the nonprofit full time.
Good for you.
But I think it just made me it ignited, like I said, my true north. It made me realize like this has been wonderful and challenging in ways I could have never foreseen. But it helped me grow so much in my understanding of organizations, business, talent acquisition, market analysis, and really the need and what's happening with the baby boomers retiring and our trades industry and just so many different parts. Yeah. And I started to realize with the military transition program, like there's something here, right? There's a great need, but there's a lot of red tape in corporate America. Yeah. And sometimes the wheel is turning slow. And I think, we're losing upwards of 22 veterans a day to suicide. Yeah. So I think the need is so great. And I realized that urgency, right? And I'm so passionate, and I realized, okay, I need to build a ladder out and up, right? To keep going. How can I truly make an impact? Because I think I've had so many people over the years like, you need to write a book, you need to be a life coach, do all these things, right? And I just kept thinking like, maybe one day, right? But I think I had this idea of success in my mind. I had to.
It was like calling out to you, like pulling you.
Yeah, but I didn't even know this, right? It's one of those things along the journey that we kind of awaken as we go through these experiences that I thought I needed to kind of land this specific position within the corporate world, right? To be this independent woman that was this kind of self-made, right? Because I got my GED, right? So, but I kept pushing, I kept going, and it was like I didn't even know those were parts of my belief, right? Until I was faced with realizing I wanted to do something more and more humanitarian and truly giving back in a different way. That I was like, oh, my identity is tied up in this position. Oh, I have to think about who am I without that title. Right? Okay. And it's like all these things came up as I started to make this decision that I was going to leave corporate America. And it was a lot more scary than I realized it was going to be. Right. And I think I'm pretty fearless in a lot of things. But it definitely stirred some things up. But it's good. Right. Because it reawakens us that we need to dig down and constantly be using those skills inside of us.
Yeah. Take risk.
Yeah. So, and I went through some really hard challenges there where I had to really look inside myself and say, okay, at what cost am I willing to keep going forward and risk my own integrity, my own moral compass, right, for what's right. And it's really hard, I think, when we're in these organizations that can be very politically driven because there is kind of like, I hate to say this, but almost like this cult-like mentality, right? You have these executive leadership teams that are like these untouchables you don't see. And there is definitely like a mindset when you go into an environment like that and a lot of ego. So for me, it was just such a growth opportunity, right? And I kept seeing that like, okay, there is so much growth for me here because I am challenged. So I was like, this is good.
You can't do anything but grow.
Right? But I was so passionate about helping and really advocating for internal and external employees, right? And how can we keep growing this? How can we evolve these programs, right? How can we do these things? So it was really awesome to see that kind of fire, like I said, ignite inside of me. And I realized that really laid the foundation for me, though. But I had to take a stand, right? And when I decided to leave, there were definitely some prompting events that were like, okay, I'm going to turn this into a positive, and I'm going to still build the ladder out, and I'm going to go out, and I'm going to give all this stuff that I've acquired on this journey, right? I think it's like it took me getting to that point to realize this isn't it, right? I climbed that ladder. And I think I need to keep going. And it was like that realization, man, was so powerful but scary. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And being a single mom with 2 small children, like that's terrifying, when you have some of the best benefits there are in corporate America, So I was very grateful for that. And you're leaving this kind of stability. It's almost like when you transition out of the military, right? Your paychecks are broken down to housing, food, all these things, right? We're reliant on this way of life. This is what we know. Yeah,
because you do have a military background. If you want to disclose that,
I have a connection to the military. So I definitely. I think my heart for like veterans in general did come. I was in another life married, and I did live off the back gates of Camp Lejeune. So I got some real exposure to different individuals within the military that really left an imprint on me in a way that was, I think back then I didn't realize how impactful, and it really has all come full circle, right? Cool. It's all definitely come full circle. But I've definitely I've lost some people that I love very much that were veterans, and I've seen the ripple effect and the generations that can be devastated by some of the suffering that's going on, right? And I think there's so many layers to that, right? And I think it's not just veterans that are suffering, right? That's the demographic that we can collect data on and see in all this. But, you know, I even have very close people to me in my life that I know because of, you know, suicides and these things, right? That it then ripple effect onto the wife and then the mother and then the siblings, right? And it's like from one. And it really opened my eyes just over the years to realize, like, wow, this is something. It's like I said, it's not just a veteran problem, right?
Yes.
Like, this is a human thing, right? It's just a demographic that's in great need right now. In great need. So, you know, it's just amazing how all of these things in my life, you know, a lot of them have been maybe from the outside, you know, and maybe at one point I definitely saw them as I was victimized to them, right? You know, I watched my friend, you know, die in the car, you know, that I was in, and I was air flighted, almost died myself, you know, almost had my foot amputated. And, you know, then I get through that, and that was, you know, a lot of awakening for me, but it wasn't, it was just the start, right? It was just the start.
Step one.
Yeah. So, you know, going back and trying to seek out, like I was telling you, I know there's another way through this. Like, I know that there's a way to not feel this out of control internally with my emotions, right? But how do I find that? Because like I said, this traditional therapy is not really getting me to where I'm trying to go. So, it's been a journey for sure. Definitely. But I am so thankful because, like I said, you know, those pains or those losses and those challenges have all become such growth opportunities. And I really see life as every obstacle is an opportunity.
Yeah. It's like the things that you are going through, it is like a ladder, and you had to go through this chunk. So the other stuff that you had to go through in life, you were prepared for that just a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Yes.
There's two very distinct differences when it comes to adversity to me, which you and I share. And it's one of those things where there's adversity where people experience loss or car accident or something that's tragic, you know, and it's shocking. It's shocking to your mental state. It's shocking to every aspect of you. But then there's those different kinds of adversity that things are happening that are not morally okay. Right. And they're not morally okay by my standards, but they're not morally okay by, if anybody knew the entirety of the circumstances. There's nobody that would think it's okay. And it's like, there's so much of that going on right now all over this world. Not just you and I, you know, and there's nobody doing anything about it.
Well, and I know it's hard.
And there are, but there's people trying.
I know it's so hard not to have that stance because it's like, it's so painful and it's hard to make peace with an injustice, right? Yeah. That's really hard.
And you just, sometimes you just have to.
You do. And I will tell you, the radical acceptance of something is so freeing, but it's so, like I said, get ready. It's uncomfortable, right? To go in there, and it's a fight to find it. And it's a fight to keep it. Because you're still going to be triggered. You're still going to have things every day, right? Just because you heal or you overcome things, it doesn't change that situation happened, right? It doesn't change that pain is real, right?
Exactly.
You just process it differently. You're able to look at it differently, right? Yeah. And I think the meditation for me, like the one thing, like as I started to have a lot of these challenges, and I started to do this work, you know, that it is definitely... you know, I think to be on life support, not once, but twice in my life, you know, and to have so many situations that brought me to a point of, you know, literally almost not being here, right? And at times, maybe that's what I wanted, right? I struggled, you know, I had a very serious suicide attempt. I was hopeless. But I'm so, like I said, now I realize like that meditation and going in and healing those parts of myself. I now realize, you know, me being healed, like, the world is still suffering. So will I ever truly be healed if other people are not? And that's where I'm so passionate right now that I'm like, I feel an obligation to go out and give this to people because they deserve to have these skills, right? They deserve to have the empowerment and the ability to go inward and the courage and the support to do that, to really heal, you know? Because I think a lot of people have this mindset that it's like, oh, they're afraid to appear broken. Right? You're afraid to say like, oh, something's wrong with me, or you know, and I just don't even like those words. Even as I said it, I'm like,
appear weak.
I think there's exactly right, our ego,
or you're just so worried about people, especially in your corporate environment or your employers,
and that's a legitimate fear. Because of our just like in corporate America, it's like, we'll leave the emotion at the door. Well, that's not human, right? Our emotions are actually here to signal us, to guide us in life and to give us instincts and insights to what's happening around us. But if we're not in touch with the physical sensations, with the cues our body's giving us, right? Before our mind or our behavior is even reacting, we are being signaled, right? Everything is energy. And so,
and it's like your human flesh body and your energy, whatever spiritual body, like are here to work together. They shouldn't be clashing. And people are so about the flesh body right now. People aren't thinking about the meditation to help with their energies or their thoughts and stuff. It's clashing.
That's why I think it's so important what we're doing. I think, and knowing, right? Like, it's funny. I just heard this the other day and I love it. If illness and disease is infectious, so is wellness, right? And the more 100%. That we are, that we're spreading that energy and we're vibrating that, right? Sometimes leading by that example is so much more impactful than anything we can say, right? Because it actually holds space for someone to get curious. And that's where, mirror neurons are so awesome in our brain, because when we see someone doing something, right, we automatically are connected to that and think we can do that.
Right.
It's like our brain does not know the difference, right? So it's really cool because I think the more that I understand about the operating system, about my mind, and I go in and it's exciting to know the limitless potential right, that we have inside of us and what we can do. And I think I'm at that place in my life after going through all of these things, right, and gaining really all these life skills and tools and things that I'm equipped with now, that I feel like, okay, now is the time, right? Because I've done that work. I've healed to the point that I'm like, I need to go help others heal, because there's so much suffering. And that was a big step for me, right? I realized even as I started to talk about some of these things out loud, like the word suicide, I was like, oh, I'm not going to say that. Right. And I was like, but wait, I have to. When I be vulnerable, right? And it was a whole process, like I was saying, to even consider stepping into this, right? And I think I know with all of my heart that it is the time.
Right.
And
you went through all your stuff for a reason. And you find your purpose and your gift. You got to give that away. And it's not even that I have to. I want to. Right.
You know what I mean? I feel so called to just like, I think I fought so hard through everything. I always just used to say, the one thing I never want to lose is my heart, you know, because I see so many people, like we were talking about earlier, you know, it's what you do with it, right? And not everybody's able to turn it inward and work through things and come out this loving, compassionate person, right? I think we see that in the collective energy. We have so much anger, frustration, external focus, and that's the programming, right? So people are kind of just on autopilot walking around.
They don't know how.
And I think the more accessible that this information is, the more accessible the support is, and the more normalized, right, these conversations are, and lifting each other up. The more that's going to ripple out and radiate out, and it's going to hold space for people to really step into their power as well. You know,
we were talking about last night, you know, about we almost have like an ability to not change the future, but you kind of do have a lot more control over your life than
we do.
Like just
absolutely. Our
it's
thoughts
all
are
up here, and then it's in your actions.
When you look at science, you know, quantum physics, you know, shows us, right, that our thoughts, and there is a field of information all around us, right? And if we are sending out signals that we are not aware of, right? If we don't go in and try to listen, how do we know what we're sending out? Right? Because that's what's showing up in our life. Right. And those are the parts of our lives that we're not looking at, that we're like, well, how is this lesson or how's this situation, you know, showing up that's so identical or parallel to something you've already experienced, right? It's like, that's when I started to get really curious. Like, well, okay. All right, universe, what am I not seeing? Right? Like, what am I not seeing in this moment? Because
what are you trying to show me?
Because this feels really familiar. Right?
Somebody said you're going to notice signs. You're going to notice things when the universe is trying to show you signs, or, you know, whether it's universe or God, and, you know, which we've started going to church and whatnot. It's worked for us. I don't push religion on anybody, though. But pay attention to those signs. And man, you know, because I needed to pay attention to the signs.
You need to open up and recognize that, like...
Yes. I don't know how many times last year we thought like, or I thought especially like, I'm like, wow, this is bad. Things can't get any worse.
Right.
And it's
then
like,
it did.
whatever you do,
Right?
I tell myself like, all right, I'm never saying that again because,
Right.
you know, I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I got anything life throws at me. I'm going to be all right.
Yes.
Because I'm a strong person. And I do
That's right.
believe that because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that wouldn't be able to hold on as long
That's
as
right.
I've held on this last year and a half.
Not at all.
That's right.
Not at all.
And and I'm proud of that. And
You should be.
you know,
Yes, you should be.
But you're
Jordan-
showing people that they really can, though.
well, like Jordan
Absolutely.
Peterson says,
Yeah.
be the strongest man at your dad's funeral. And I heard that saying and I had to think about that. I'm like, what does that mean by that? But I'm like, you know, I get it, you know, because if you can be strong going through extreme adversity,
Yes.
like what's more admirable than that? What's more, you know, what's
You're right.
more beautiful than that?
Yeah.
Like,
And what's so powerful is that it's like that's mental toughness,
Yes.
right? That's where resilience is forged, is through the mental toughness that we're able to build. And I believe there is a very tangible way to do that we all can have access to, right? And we
Yeah.
can do that work if we're willing,
Right.
and committed,
Yeah.
because it is uncomfortable. It is
Yep.
hard to
Growth is uncomfortable.
yeah, and the ego mind, all that stuff, it's going to tell you every time you start to go on this new path, right? It feels foreign, it's unknown,
right.
because it is, and our
Yeah.
brain's actually building new neurological connections, right? And we have all these wired and fired, neurons already that are like hardwired, right? So they're giving us
Yeah.
the chemical reactions we're used to feeling.
Yeah.
So when we step into this unknown space and we're building, it feels almost like foreign, and we're like,
Imposter
okay, this is
syndrome.
exactly yes, or it's like, okay, this is not me, but it's like we have to build the new connections, the new way of thinking.
allow
right?
yourself to
Right.
be uncomfortable.
That's
and
right.
it is
Right.
not easy. Like there's been,
because your brain will trick you. It'll
Yes.
start all of a sudden showing you images of stuff trying to trigger you. Because
Yeah.
it's like, well, I want to feel irritated right now because at 10 a.m. when I watch the news, I'm irritated. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, if you start changing that routine, that autopilot, it is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Or-
the transformations that take
Right.
place when you get through the uncomfortable piece, there is something really beautiful on the other side, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that are like, well, that's just how I am. If they're like negative or depressed, well, it's just how I am. But you can change.
It's a belief, right?
Yes.
And that belief is then driving our behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
emotions, right?
nobody
Yep.
will believe in you until you believe in yourself. I
Yeah.
think,
That's
and
right.
that is so damn true.
Yep.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. And learning how to show yourself that support, to be your
Yeah.
hero, to be your
Yeah.
biggest fan, right? Like that's hard when most of us are programmed in a shame society, right? Where we don't feel worthy. We don't really
Right.
feel good enough, right?
If you can
And-
surround yourself with people, like you and just like-minded individuals though too,
Yeah.
like that is another way to just propel yourself in a different way.
for sure.
Well, it's just like the-
important to do it.
Right.
Yes.
Like you are your company. Like whatever
Yes.
you surround yourself with, the people like that, their energy is going to
That's right.
feed off onto you.
Even
Yeah.
when we're not like maybe as engaged with them. And I'll tell you, I noticed this towards the end of being in corporate America, that I was like, oh, there is a collective energy here that is absolutely affecting me, right? And
Yeah.
it's heavy. And
Yeah.
It's heavy, and it's really toxic, and it's something that as much as I wanted it not to be true, right? I had to accept, like, I do believe, and I've always believed, and this is no different, right? As much as my brain wants to convince me and lie to me and say, nope, this is where you need to stay.
Right.
It's not toxic. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, no, we have to radically accept what is. And I think it's so important to actually step fearlessly into that, because I think that's where we're going to find our real purpose and passion.
Yeah.
Is when we can get so honest with ourselves,
Yeah.
and look at things that even sometimes our brain may be saying, right? Question it. Question everything, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going to really find the truth within yourself.
yeah.
Because that is it. Like you said, nobody can make you do it. No one's going to do it for you. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy.
Nobody
right?
wants you to question anything anymore either. They
That's
just want
right.
you on autopilot to accept everything as is,
Yeah.
keep moving forward,
Well, and people want their blinders. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't really want to.
It's
look at it.
safe
it's like,
and
that's-
easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think accepting that's where they're at on their journey.
Yeah.
Right. And like
Yep.
you were saying, not to push anything onto anyone. Like I'm a huge believer in that, because I think, like I
Yeah.
said, leading by that example is
Yeah.
going to call it's going to hold space, and it's going to call those like-minded individuals or whatever it is that you're looking for, right? Fulfillment with, or to surround yourself with.
Right.
But I think it's so important to do that, because the more we can start to be aware that everything is vibrating and sends a frequency, whether it's sound, people,
Yep.
places, things, right? That is impacting our ability to actually get outside of our own autopilot, to get outside of our own norm, right? We might sit down and have this this amazing meditation, but if you jump right back into the same environment, right, and the same triggers, how exhausted are you going to be by noon? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
You know, it's like, well, nothing's changing in my outside environment. So it's an active process, right? You have to be willing and committed to get uncomfortable and change a lot of things in your life.
Consistency.
To see. And I'll tell you, I had a mentor one time. Sorry, before I forget this, but it's like, I'll never forget, you know, I was really struggling with suicide for about 10 years. I mean, really I was very desensitized to the idea growing up with some of my family dynamics. So it was almost like normalized, right? I just didn't realize like, oh, not
How was your childhood?
Challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging. I think it was kind of like an ongoing joke too, that I was always so different, you know, and I look very different from most of my family. I was different. And I think I always felt that and knew that, but it was a negative, right? It felt like something was wrong with me. And that belief started very young, right? That something was wrong with me. And I was very sensitive in a way that I think, like I was telling you guys, I think I was born kind of with an extra sense. Yeah. Like I don't know exactly what that means, but I know there is definitely...
You feel something different.
I'm connected to people, and some people call it an empath. You know, some people have different things for it. I'm not really sure that I need to subscribe to anything. I'm just okay with knowing like... I definitely feel the world differently, right? And more intensely, and that's good. That's a negative and a positive.
Yeah,
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Like I feel like I'm so emotionally involved in everything, and I take a lot of things personal or put myself in like your position, and I get so emotionally attached to you. I wish I wasn't like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, it's something that we can all work on. Right?
Yeah.
I think those are important things to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so my mentor, she had said to me, she was like, and she was my therapist at the time. She said, you know, give me 6 months, like 6 months of just like taking this off the table completely as an option. And in 6 months, if you still want to kill yourself, then go right ahead. And it was like kind of shocking, right? I was like, okay. But I knew like it was life or death for me.
Yeah.
You know, it really was. I mean, I had so much trauma and so much pain, and it was 100%. I just had no hope. It was running my life, right? I knew I did not know how to get out of that, right? My brain had been so programmed into that thinking. But I remember that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. 6 months. Okay. After this many years of this much suffering,
with 6 months,
I'll give you 6 months. Yeah. And it changed my whole entire life. You know, did I feel better in 6 months? And I was like, oh, I'm healed.
Right.
No, you know, no, let me not send the illusion out there that it's in, 6 months of dedicated work of going inward, you're going to feel better. Maybe you will, right? Everybody's journey is different.
Right.
For me, I had a lot of years to undo of escape behaviors and self-destructive ways and thinking and living, right? And really facing some parts of myself that I had to let go of.
Like during those 6 months, you got the tools and knowledge of what to do for your future.
Yeah, I started to really learn about cognitive therapy, right? And understanding, like I was telling you, some of that work of stepping back and I'm not my thoughts, right? So I started to really lean in from a place of no judgment and having love and compassion, which I don't know that I had ever shown myself, right? I didn't even think to show myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this makes a little more sense, right? Okay. And it was like, I started to see some hope.
Yeah.
I started to see, I can do this.
Yeah.
Oh, I have the ability to actually rewire my own brain.
Yes.
And there are tools that that are accessible to me that I can actually apply to my life. But when you begin to go in there and do those things, like I said, buckle up because it gets hard, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I just want to throw
comes
in
out.
On the movie Tribal we just watched, it's a military documentary. Been talking to the producer for a while, and a great group of guys. It's on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch, but
I was emotional the entire time.
Well,
trying not to cry the entire time.
They talk about soldier suicide, and like they lost more guys when they got home than they did over in Iraq. And these guys were in early Iraq, I think 2003, 2004, Battle of Fallujah, etc. And this guy said it best. I've never heard it said like this, and it's kind of common sense, but like when people commit suicide, they want that pain to be gone.
That's right.
They want it to be gone, but it doesn't go anywhere. You're dispersing it to those people you love.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's such an important thing to me. Yeah. And then, I've had very hard days. I was never really suicidal. I just had severe concerns about my mental state.
Right.
And like, I know I was good. I was worried. I was so stressed.
Scary.
I'm like, man, like I want to be okay.
Right.
But I've always had purpose.
Yeah.
And, especially she's helped me more than anything. I can't imagine how I would have done it. And I think how many people out there are like me, going through hard times. They don't have a Monica.
Right.
They don't have kids to give them purpose,
That's
or they do, and it's
right.
a way worse, dirtier, disgusting situation than you could ever imagine. It's like,
right.
how do those people have hope?
Right.
Yeah, but also they let that depression and that state of mind take over. They don't know how to take control of it, even if you have kids or a wife.
That's right.
That's what they need
from anything but the suffering. Right? Because like I said, our brain is an operating system, so it's constantly analyzing data. It's trying to figure things out. And if it's like, well, I know I don't want to feel like this anymore. Right. It's not that you want to die necessarily. You don't want to be in that pain.
Right.
You just, you physically cannot take it. And it's crazy because our mind is able to create so many physical pains and sicknesses and diseases, right, on its own, just over thought alone.
Yes.
And I think we are becoming more aware of how serious our thought does impact our health and all of these things.
Yeah.
But like you said, it is hard to fathom, how does someone get to that place of being so hopeless? And it's definitely something I will tell you looking back, and we've talked about this, it's like it's almost like a different life.
It is.
Because my entire brain chemistry, my entire being, it is in a different realm, if you will, right now.
It is
compared to then. Yeah. And it's been, I'll say even the last decade of work has been so transformational for me. Because once I started to see, like I said, I can do this, right? I can change the whole outcome of my life.
Yeah.
And
how long ago was that point where you were suicidal?
Yeah. So, well, like I said, I had struggled with it for about 10 years until I had a very serious suicide attempt where I ended up on life support.
Yeah.
So that was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I wish I could say that I woke up and I was like, oh, thank God I'm alive. I want to get better. But no, that's not what happened. Right.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, things got easier from there, right?
No. That's when the real work started.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's when the real work started for me. And I thought, okay, all right, well, I guess I'm not going anywhere. I am here. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was this awakening. And I realized, okay, God, I hear you. I am not leaving this life. Obviously, there is a reason you have me here. So I am going to seek out.
You have a job to do.
Yeah, and I got so hungry for just mentors and therapists and knowledge and things outside of what I had been doing, right? Because up from 14 to that point, I was doing talk therapy, and it's like all of these things that were not effective in my life. Like I had learned about some cognitive therapy and things like that, but I wasn't actively applying them every day. I wasn't in an environment or a situation, right? I was in survival every day. It's like when you're living with those stress hormones, it's very hard to even connect to the things in our lives that are important or give us purpose when you're that emotionally shut down, So
what was the? Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say, like, years ago when I was taking Cymbalta, I was so it helped my racing thoughts and my depression and all that kind of stuff. But he even mentioned I wasn't connected to anything. I was like, she was so numb.
When she should have reacted, she wasn't reacting to things that were happening in life, and I'm like,
this is not healthy.
That can't be
it's
okay.
crazy, but that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah, no, I know that.
What's even scarier is that people are being programmed to believe that's the way out.
Yeah, and the thing is like I believe those thoughts and emotions that it's suppressing, they're not just disappearing.
Right.
I feel like they're they're somewhere, and I think there's an equal and opposite reaction to everything that we're doing.
Every yoga class, I used to tell my students, your issues are in your tissues, because they are. Our thoughts are creating chemicals, right, that are then going into our body, and if we are not releasing those things, they, like you said, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
They are manifesting and storing in our body and wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
They are. And
it's crazy, like when we're talking about memories, like I have so many memories that I don't remember. It's shoved in my mind somewhere. Some things will like pop up and I'll be like, oh, like remember this and that, but it doesn't happen very often. And it's just so strange to me how sometimes I'm like, I wish I could remember this stuff.
Right.
But do I really?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what
Our
would I
brain
do with it
is
right now?
So protective of us, you know, and it's just like with, giving birth, right? If we remembered the actual pain of giving birth, probably no woman would have a child, you know? Yeah, like we would not.
I didn't think it was that bad personally.
I'm glad you had a good experience.
Kind of stood there.
No, and I just kind of wanted to bring things back in the rails as far as like your adversity. 'Cause so you went through that suicidal point in your life, and and as I already know, because we've talked a lot, like things didn't get easier, and I think that's super relevant with whatever you're able to talk about.
Yeah.
But so, what was your next life challenge after that? Would you say?
I think mourning the loss of, I became estranged from my entire family, and went on a journey of really, like I said, healing.
Yeah.
And I just knew it was life or death for me. And that's when I really started to heal, right? Was when I got a disconnect from them. And I think it challenged me in ways that sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, how did I overcome some of that, right? It's like, but when we have this unbreakable will and this drive and we're determined, our minds can overcome so much. The amount of pain that we're going through, right? No matter how unbearable. I think even my accident taught me that, right? Like our human body is capable of a lot, and your mind's going to take you out a lot faster than your body's willing to give up, right?
Absolutely.
And if you can forge that kind of resilience in your mind, you really can overcome anything.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to be easy. But, so I went through some things that I think mourning the loss of people that were still alive and some sufferings that I just was not equipped to deal with, right? So again, I had some more things piled on top of the work I was already committed to doing, but it was like, life definitely handed me a lot of growth opportunities, we'll say, right? But a lot of pain that I had to look at, right? And I was so committed to not, like I said, letting it change my heart, because I knew, you said something in the beginning, and it's like, I'll be honest with you, it's like, not to toot my own horn or say this, but it's like, I do know that I have such a different heart than most people in this world, right? And it is so pure.
Yeah, same here.
And I struggle, and that's how I kind of got to that place of being so hopeless. I struggled to really connect and understand why the world was in the state that it was. There was so much pain, and I could feel it everywhere, right? And I just didn't know what to do with it. And from my own trauma, the energy trauma that I was feeling, right, of what was going on socially, and just not knowing how to navigate, and my brain's having all these alarms or signals, right? And it was just like
so much.
Yeah,
oh my
so
gosh.
much.
Yeah.
And then, I started to, like I said, have some divine intervention. And I had my therapist and mentor, and I did the first 6 months, and I was like, oh, I'm going to keep going, right? I'm going to keep getting better, and I'm going to keep giving back. And does it mean that it was pretty? It was a pretty path? Absolutely not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the times that I did something that was self-destructive, right, I had to really lean in and understand myself in a way that it does not negate all the work that I've done, right? Yeah. So there was a lot of learning to show myself love and compassion and support in a way that I didn't have anymore, right? I didn't have it. And I don't know that I probably had it in a very healthy way ever in my life. And that's what I was learning, right? I was seeking out, how do you have healthy relationships? And I'm so thankful. There was 2 women specifically that I'll tell you are like earth angels that changed and saved my life, right? They gave me so much.
Yeah.
That I'm just, like I said, I feel like I have to go give that to people.
Yeah.
Because I was in a place, guys, that it's hard to articulate to somebody that I'm a very small statistic of individuals that actually not only survive, but thrive on the other side, right? And the amount of suffering that I have felt at times physically, I thought, I physically can't survive this, right? The losses and the things that I had, it was heavy. And I was alone, right?
Yeah.
I was alone. And I'm just so thankful. Like I said, when I was so committed to figuring out how am I going to survive this, right? Because I know there's another way of living. So I was not going to give up, no matter how many things kept knocking me down. It was like, I'll take a knee, but I have some tools now. So universe, you're going to have to, you know.
Hit a little harder.
Yeah, literally. It's like, okay. And then it did. And I was like, okay, I'll take a break. No, I'm not going to say that again. Yeah. But, you know, exactly. And it's like, you have to keep going, and you have to realize that just because we get the tools, right, doesn't mean that all of a sudden all these experiences and this pain and we are,
you can't just glide through.
Yeah, that's just
easy.
gone.
Right.
It doesn't go away. Right. You just find ways, like we were saying, to see it and process it differently and feel it differently. And it's something that I have seen other people, I've mentored other people with these life skills. I've given that back, right? And because I wanted to see before I stepped into this, like, okay, this worked for me, right? And I know that the women that gave me these tools and showed up for me in a way that I can't even describe to you. Yeah. I had a team of people that was dedicated to seeing me succeed, right? They knew my heart. They knew my story.
That like gives me chills.
And and I'm so thankful, you know, and I wish I would have talked to one of them before I came so I could ask if I could say their name, because I have another one, an older gentleman now who has just also been an earth angel in my life. And someone that I respect. He was actually with Dr. Martin Luther King the night before he was shot. And he is just such an amazing human. And he has moved on some of the biggest civil rights movements of our time and is still, you know, active, you know, advocating in the community. And I was so thankful, you know, that he showed up in my life at the time I needed that, right? And he...
the timing of everything and the people that enter your life at the perfect time. It's
and no matter
insane.
Whether you believe God, you know, the universe, whatever it is that you believe, it's like if you start to step back, right, and be that observer of your life and really looking at it from a place of, like I said, no judgment and just love, it's like, oh wow, the universe, God has actually brought me everyone and thing usually along the way that I needed. Yeah. And when it hasn't, those are those moments, right, of, like I said, where I start to lean in, like, okay, what am I not seeing here, right? There's something I've got to do the work too, right? Oh, yeah. Like we have to participate.
I'll give you the tools, but you need to use them.
That's right. You know? That's right. And it's like you can lead a horse to water kind of thing. You can't make a drink. It's so real because, and that was hard for me when I first decided that I was going to start doing this, right? Because I'm usually mentoring or you know, trying to help someone that's close to me, right? And to really balance that of knowing, like, I know they can do it, right? I know anyone can do it. Especially if I know if I can get to where I'm at in my life, that's where this passion comes from, that I'm like, oh, you guys, like, trust me.
You got this.
Yes, exactly. Right.
And I'm here right next to you, helping you along the whole way.
That's right. And I really, you know, going to where I'm going now, right? That's why this nonprofit and building these communities is so important to me. The need is so great. And there's so many of us that are seeking community and seeking connection, right? But we are being driven further and further apart with the way that society is right now. And I think that's on so many layers, right? Between politics and you know, technology and there's so many layers to what that means, right? So I think it's on us, right, to do exactly like what you guys are doing, and thank you for that, because it's like forging that path.
I feel like we need to be better at reaching out to the people that are scared to reach out and ask for help, you know, because so many people are scared to ask for help, and that is where it all starts, you know?
Well, and it's a scary place, right, too, also to do that, right? Because I've also done that, and it's like, okay, I reach out to see if they need help, and then all of a sudden it's like, I realize we can't save anyone, right? Can I help them? I can give them the tools, but again, are they going to apply them?
Right.
And that's where it is so, it's having that vulnerability again, right? It's being willing to be vulnerable enough to ask, to see, is there something I can do? Right? Can I give this person some love and support in some way? And even if we can't fix the problem, just showing love, because the crazy thing is all these people, right, on this self-growth and all this thing, and I remember I was always like, okay, what is the secret sauce? What is it, right? What do I need to do to get to that place, right, of enlightenment or contentment, right? I wasn't even necessarily chasing happiness. I was just chasing, like, I just want, like, you know, stability, contentment.
Baby steps.
So, exactly. And I realize, and that's why I have this tattoo on my chest, only love. It is love.
Yeah.
At the core of every being, because we are all human beings, right?
Yeah.
We may go through different situational experiences that are, like you said, maybe it seems like they're carrying a heavier weight or having more adversity than another person, right? But the human part of us is that pain is pain, right?
Yeah.
Suffering is suffering, and love is love, right? And when we can really get to a place of pure love and be able to show that and hold space for that, right?
Yeah.
And have grace with ourselves. And that starts by showing ourselves, right? Because how can we go out and love others if we're not giving ourselves that?
Yeah.
It's actually not possible as much as I wanted to believe it was, because I was like, oh, it's so hard to just love you all the time. Right? I battled with that for years.
Absolutely right.
It was like it took intentional work to like lean in and love me, right? And feel worthy enough, because I hadn't really been shown that or told that or made feel that ever.
People need to know it's like necessary to love yourself, and it's okay. And you're not going to be looked at as, oh, you're, so conceited or whatever. Like you need to love yourself.
Right.
You have to.
You do.
Yeah.
How much more did you want to cover between? No, I just don't want to get too derailed, because I really want to hear your story.
Yes.
I just don't want to run out of time.
Yeah. How long have we been talking?
We're at an hour right now.
Okay, wow. That's like a derail us back, pull us back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I know, I just because your story, and I don't know, I really want to make sure we get all of it as far as because I just don't know what you're comfortable with talking about, what you can, because like me, there's a lot there we can, and there's a lot there we can't. But so I don't know, I'll let you have the floor wherever you want to take off.
So I think I've shared like some of the things obviously that were big catalysts for me getting to where I'm at now. So I think, like I said, that adversity, those struggles, those challenges, those losses, those have all been part of the journey that I think has led me to where I'm at now, where it's like I said, I know that I have to give this out to other people. They need that. And, showing that.
I just wanted to, we put a big emphasis, especially with her and her past and stuff, on like relationships and going through difficult relationships and stuff. And I don't know if you can go any.
Actually that's,
I just didn't want to skip over that if that's something.
I mean, it's a pretty significant part.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely struggled with having some abusive relationships and just very toxic relationships, right? And in different ways. Like I did all of this work. I'll talk about something more recently that I've really had to overcome, So I had done all this work, right? I decided to be single for, it was like 6 or 7 years. And I was like, okay, I am ready, right? To like do this. I'm ready to get back in. And, I was hit with a pretty unexpected situation that I think I was kind of blindsided by, because I had told myself, right, that I had healed all of these things, which I do believe is still true. But all of a sudden, this lesson was showing back up, right, of this toxic, abusive relationship that I'm like, hold on, how did I get here, right? At what point did I not see these flags or these things, right? Yeah. And I had to really dig down. And that was almost kind of, I felt like, the final puzzle piece in my life of learning my worth, right? I had learned and gathered all these things. But it's like I had to be taken to that place in a very extreme situation, that I'm so grateful I walked in with some tools, right? Because there's a lot of women that don't get out of that. There's a lot of women that do not survive those situations and move on to actually heal and have, a thriving life. Right.
It becomes a cycle.
Oh yeah, like it's generational,
right? Like they don't necessarily look for it. Their energy attracts it.
You pull it in.
Yeah,
right? Our heart literally has that magnetic field, right? Yeah. So if we are, if our understanding of love, right, from a very young age becomes something of abuse, right, or there's a disconnect in unconditional love, if you're being shown conditional love, right, or you've had all these things that have kind of given you this diluted version of what love is, right, all of a sudden, and I believe, for me personally, this is what I found to be true, the reason we're drawn to, right, or draw certain things into us, it's actually because we recognize this familiarity of this energy, right? We think it's maybe, oh, I've known this person from a past life. Like you hear that sometimes, and it's like, and maybe that is true, right? Maybe that is true. But I do believe actually what it is more so is actually that you're connecting to what that concept or idea of love was. So if that was abusive, if that was toxic, if that was something unhealthy, right? All of a sudden you're now repeating the same thing, right? And it's like, well, why is this happening, right? And I think getting, again, inside to say, what do I believe love is, right? And actually listening to see, like, what do I believe? Or observing to see, like, what you're thinking is so important because for me, when I was in that, right, and all these things started to happen, that I was like, okay, well, now I have infants. I have 2 infant children at that moment. All of, again, that identity, right, this thing I thought was I had to have this marriage. I was going to have this family, right? And that was something so important to me because I didn't grow up with, parents who were in a healthy marriage and a I guess the idealistic family structure that we're told, right, is like, this is what you want to strive for.
Right.
So I didn't have that. So it was important to me that I was like, oh, I want to give that to my children so bad, right? So they have, because I also believe we all have, it's important to have the duality of life. And in this situation, right, with families, it's the masculine and the feminine energy, right? There's a need for both. Yep. And so that's kind of really how I looked at that as well. So I was like, oh, this is important to me. And the shame that came with that, right? Because outwardly, no one really knew that anything was going on, but behind the scenes, it was.
How long were you in the relationship for?
Before I finally actually have disconnected, about 4 years. Okay. So not that long compared to some women that 20 years, right? And these. But I think it's because, like I said, I had those tools, right? I knew, exactly. Oh, wait, I have seen this lesson, right? How is this showing back up?
Why?
But
I need to change it.
But I was equipped to look at it from a more loving and compassionate place, right? I wasn't being as reactive to the situation, even though it was very traumatic and I was reacting, right? I was still able to pull up this other part of me, even though it was very triggering. But again, it was a moment when I finally knew I have to leave, right? I have to leave. And there is no other choice. Right. It took every bit of my strength to do that, right? But I did. And that's when it was the launching point of like, okay, I have now overcome something I believe, whether it be spiritually or whatever. It moved my life into another level. I mean, within days of that, even doors opening that like for months, you're like applying or doing things in your life and you're like, well, why is this not working? Right. Something. And then all of a sudden you move something, right? And that space is freed up and boom, the universe delivers. And it's like, crazy. Oh yeah. And it's like, it was that moment that I really reconnected to that. Like, oh yeah, when we really step into our power, when we take our power back, when we align to our truth, right? The universe responds to that. And it shows up and gives us exactly what we need as well to move through that.
Maybe not what we want.
That's right. Because understanding what we want and what we need, exactly. And that we are seeking, is it actually like a pleasure response from a situation, right? Or what is it that we're seeking? Right. And getting really mindful and clear about what are we after. I think that's so important. And that situation, I knew, right? This, as much as I wanted this to be aligned, and now I have these 2 babies, right? And it was like challenging everything that I'm like, I just fought against to become none of this, right? And I thought there was so much confusion, even in like what I thought I was doing with like breaking generational curses and all of these things, right? That was now challenging every part of my belief. And I'm trying to get out of an extremely volatile and toxic situation that I knew was slowly sucking the life from me, almost literally, that I was like, okay, I have to make a choice here, right, in my life. I'm either going to continue down this path that everything I've just worked so hard to get and challenge this belief that's now keeping me stuck, right, and keep going. And I am so thankful, right, like I had all those experiences prior to that. Because had I not been equipped from all of those other hardships and losses and pains and knowing how to really step back and look at the situation from a place where I was able to do that in the midst of, such chaos and so much emotional turbulence, I'm so grateful.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because there's so many women and men too, right? And men that are in these situations and relationships, and there's so many toxic dynamics out there that and I think about this, it's like everyone has their story, right? Yeah. Everybody has their backstory of how they're brought up and these things, and it comes down to, I think for me, it's like I don't look at people and think anymore like, oh, what is wrong with that person? I look at them and I think, what happened to that person?
What did they go through?
Yeah.
What made them so bitter and miserable to the extent like they're so broken?
Right.
Yeah.
Or even people that are extremely happy. Like, how did they get there?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I don't think you're just all of a sudden just happy. I mean, I'm like happy, annoyingly happy all the time. But it's like
there's a person, at church. I won't name any names or anything. And a lot of people, if they were to watch this, they would all know who we're talking about. But just like, is the most positive person I think I've ever been around my entire life, and older person, and just like
his energy is just.
It's such a beautiful thing though, and it is so contagious, and like and I heard that person has had a very difficult life. A lot of things that I've hold dear to my heart and have experienced, with my sister and her, losing a battle to opioids. Yes. This individual, I believe, also went through that, and it's inspiring for me just seeing that. I'm like that.
Because we can choose that, right?
Yeah.
And we can keep fighting. Yeah.
It truly is a choice.
Fighting that internal place, right? To say, like, I know I can rewire and reprogram and reach like your highest self.
And hopefully reprogram other people to realize, or at least help them realize they have that exact same potential to be in the exact same mindset.
Yeah, some people are so stuck, they feel like it's not their choice.
That's right. Yeah.
It's just who I am. It's just my life.
Absolutely.
I think it's vast majority of people that are having hard times, people just stuck in that negative mindset.
Well, and victimized their circumstance.
Yes.
Just so victimized.
Victim mentality.
Yeah, when I first started to do this work, and I'll tell you, my therapist would say, drop the story. What's the story you're telling? I'm like, story? Excuse me? Like, this is really happening in my life. Like, what do you mean? This pain is, I'm not telling a story. These are facts, And I remember I would get so defensive and all these things. And I realize now, being on this side, it's like, oh, it is the narrative that we tell ourselves, right? Yes. And that is what's driving our perspective and how we interpret the world, how we experience the world, right? So if we feel and are victimized to something, absolutely, we are telling ourselves that story, that we are the victim. Yeah. And I think one of the most important things out of all of this is like, mindfulness gives you the ability to take your power back, right? Yeah. Meditation gives you the ability to take your power back and to understand how much power you actually have, right? And that you hold the power. Right. You do. No one outside of you can ever make you feel like something, or any of those things, right? We are reactive or allow that. So,
or if you catch yourself giving somebody power, you can change. You like, all right, take a deep breath.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of power in your breath.
Powerful thing that we have, and the most powerful tool that we have.
And it can bring you to the moment, 100%. To the present moment.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like the sweet spot is, right? The here and now. That's where the beautiful thing is. It's right here.
So I'm so thankful for the here and now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even explain.
Yeah. Do you know how many days and even recently, I'll have a really hard day and I'm worrying about things. And I realize, they say worrying is product of the devil. And I really believe there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah. Cause you're worrying and your mind could be somewhere else healthy.
Yeah, what was that? What is it? It was about, you could have faith or you can have worry. They're both two things you can't see. You can pick what one you want to, focus your mind on or something. I'm paraphrasing that horribly bad, but
but I know what you're saying. That was really bad, but yes.
It was a really, really, really good saying.
Yes.
And as far as your nonprofit, like, do you want to go into detail about that?
Yeah. So I am super excited, to share that sorry.
You're fine. Nope, you're fine.
Knock over the whole thing. I'm super excited to share. I have decided to start a nonprofit. So I just got the nonprofit started. I am launching the nonprofit now. So I have some partnerships with Investment, who you guys know Josh. He is amazing.
That's how we met.
We got connected.
Thankful for Josh.
I sent him a picture of us out at at dinner yesterday, and he was so happy to see us together. Yeah.
Oh man, he is such an amazing soul, and his mission and my mission are so aligned. And again, the universe just kind of brought our paths.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for him in my life, because it was really that confirmation. Like when I met Josh, I was like, okay,
Investment,
this is it.
right?
Investment is his for-profit business. Yes, that he is just launching as well. And so between investment and then mine's actually called Moving Mindfully. So it's going to be sustainable and conscious living communities, right? With mindfulness centers that have lots of resources. And really what that means, right, is giving us transformation, right?
Yeah.
Having community that is actually together, and we're growing things agriculturally, right? Something for me that's been really powerful is the physical work of things. And that's a tool that I've realized is so empowering for so many of us, especially when we're in crisis, is to physically move our body, and not just with like working out, but like, that's why I love agriculture so much, because it's like when you actually can like plant a seed, grow it, and then see that, and then, actually eat your own food.
It's like a representation of you, what you're going through.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that, just the little things that I feel like are so reflective in nature. And it's such a big part of this. And so Moving Mindfully for me is a mission that I feel like is going to connect, hopefully, veterans and the community members, because veterans have so much to offer the community, right? And the mentorships from that as well. And really, just like I said, this is more than a community, it's a lifestyle. It's really showing up and playing that active role. So, just really, I really am hoping to make an impact on all levels, right? So these communities are inclusive of everyone, right? Because children need these skills as well. They need these tools, right? So I'm hoping to have actually in the first community, like a 12-week program where you can actually come and stay and go through like a full immersion program. So right now
I love it.
So I'm like, it's going to be so exciting. Just, lots of meditation, lots of internal work and love and just, going in and being together. I think it's so important. And like you guys talked about with your church, I think having that community is something that a lot of us, we're humans, we need that connection.
We need that, the love and the support. Like humans are not meant to be alone and deal with stuff alone. We need each other.
And I want this to be such a safe place. I think that's what's so important, is to create safe spaces, right? Without judgment. A place that you can actually get some unconditional love and some mentorship and support, or whatever it is you're looking for, right? What do you need to transform in your life? Really, that's what I hope that this will be.
We need to just go there and stay a couple days and
that'd be awesome.
I'm hoping to really have several of them in different states. So it is definitely a big vision. It's a huge vision, I will tell you. Like I said, it's more than a community.
And I so badly want to get it out of the way. I want to be able to talk to a group of people, and just because I never had before, and like I said to her like recently a couple different times, I'm like, man, if I could talk to a group with her, have a mic with her, we're a team, we'd spend us this whole time. I'm like, I'd be a lot more comfortable. I'd still suck at it. I really would. I'd be horrible.
Suck at it together.
You would at all. I really don't. I think you'd be great.
I think once I got past the awkward stage, and it would benefit me everywhere else in life, even at my current job and stuff like that.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's what I'm like. I hope and hope that you guys would want to be a part of the community as well, because I think you guys would be so pivotal in that. And that's the beautiful thing, right? So with this nonprofit, it's like, this is not a me thing, right? Like I may have some of the skill sets and tools to understand the organization and business side of things, right? Or how structurally this would need to go, because it is something very large. But it's a we thing, like, right? I definitely don't have all the tools to do it on my own, right? And I'm not the subject matter expert in community planning and, all of these things, right? But I've got enough bits and pieces, and I've got that work ethic, right? I've got that resilience, and I've got that heart and that passion, right? To really help. That I'm like, okay, this is my true north, right?
I have no doubt in my mind you'd be successful doing it. So, but
I cannot wait.
And you guys too, and that's why I'm like, exactly.
I know.
But I'm like, I definitely, would love for you guys to be a part of that as well. And I think there's just so much for all of us in it, to see it as a we thing. It really is, because even like with Josh, like we talk about all the time, we're out here doing this, laying the pavement or pounding the pavement, if you will, but it's almost like, this is something so much bigger than him or I or one person, right? This is really a movement, and this is really a shift in how we look at so many ways of our life, right? And challenging so many ways of our current societal structure. And I do know that it's definitely going to probably be a little controversial at first, right? Everything that's different it's scary. But I think the transformation and all of that will speak for itself, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you see the actual impacts and the change and the people's lives that are actually impacted, right? Because the whole mission here is to slow the suffering, slow the suicide, slow the homelessness, right? Have a safe place. And it's so important. So, I'm so excited.
I just think about like Josh knowing you and then him and Josh talking, the connection. Like we didn't just all meet for no reason.
Oh no, nothing's by accident.
Right, exactly.
Like when we can start to realize that life is happening for us, it's pretty exciting. Right? Because when things start to fall apart and it's like, I know like old me would be like, oh, you know, this is catastrophic in my life. Now I realize I'm like, oh, get ready.
Right.
Something awesome is about to come in, right? Because it's clearing space. And really that's what it is. And I think when we can start to see those obstacles as opportunity, it becomes a whole new paradigm in how we interact with the universe and life and ourselves, right? And our true purpose. And I think all of us, like I was telling you before, I think are the same in that we're all really seeking love, right? We're all seeking to be seen and heard and loved. And I think we come into the world that way and then kind of fight to figure that back out. And I'm just hoping that we can help as many people as possible, right? To really not feel that same suffering and have to go through so much hardship, right? Because the answers are actually like that secret sauce I told you. It's love. Right? If you can 100%. Approach everything from a space of love, man, it changes. It changes the world.
It does.
It does. Yeah.
Saves the world.
Yeah. No matter how, like you said in the beginning, right? You feel like you're just one little person, but it's like that.
Get a lot of one little persons, you know?
That's right. That's right. And it radiates out in the world.
Yeah. And I noticed the value in just being confident, you know, because getting a lot of validation over the past couple of weeks with just people we've talked to and just people that are inspiring us like you, just, you know, just building us up. Because we don't always have that, you know, and like there's times where we, like last couple months, we didn't get out hardly any content or anything, been stupid busy. And it's like, I question everything, you know, I question, you know, whether or not, man, what are people thinking about this? And, you know, and just worry about judgment but
I'm like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Everybody's gonna have an opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. And I think when you move from that space of like good intention and you have that heart, like you said, that's pure, you're moving from that space. I think as you continue to grow in this, like you'll be able to like shield yourself so much because you'll realize like, it really, the more that we're feeding that, right? We're actually giving it life because energy is the currency of the world. So what we pay attention to, right? It's gonna grow.
We need a podcast studio so bad. But we recently got some potential sponsorship opportunities that seem very promising. And I'm like, I need to slow down and enjoy the present moment. I need to stop wanting more.
No matter what, like we do need to slow down. Your mind and everything, and things will fall into place.
Yeah, no, I believe that. And, you know, like there's a professional podcaster we talked to, and I thought it was cool because I brought up the fact that I'm like, man, I thought my close friends and family would be because I would be so supportive of my friends and family if they're trying to do something. I don't care what the hell they're trying to do. If they're genuinely trying to do something for the benefit of others, like I would be so supportive of that. And like, not that people aren't supportive, but like, the level of give a shit I thought would be there isn't really there, and it's fine. You know, you can't set the expectation of how people are going to react to something that you're doing. And I've kind of dropped that expectation, and it's definitely helped. And
a little weight off your shoulders.
But it's cool. Like lately, you know, especially after like we're recording with the fire department. You know, that was really, really neat and just a good conversation. And like yesterday, you know, going over to the event and like a lot of those people like, oh, you guys are the ones that recorded with Joe and like thanking us and stuff. Like, you know, it made me feel so good. You know, just get back a little, you know.
Feel seen, validated.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
that boost of energy.
Definitely.
Like, okay, keep going.
I just kind of wish I didn't need that. You know, I wish I could just do what I'm going to do and just shoot content out there, whatever, and just enjoy what we're doing. And I do.
Well, I think that's where that inner work, right, is so important. Like, you need to be able to fill your cup.
Yes.
You need to give that to you, because then, right, we don't actually need it externally so much. Then we start to be the one, right? We're filling our cup so much it's overflowing. And guess what? Like, other people there's enough to go around, right? We all get something. And it's like, that's how it goes. And
somebody just talked about empty cup syndrome. One of my friends, I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, we did. I don't remember either. But I love that. Yeah, fill your cup up, so then the extra you can give away.
Exactly. It just radiates out. You know what I mean? It's that whole thing where it's like, when we embody that and we realize, like I said, be your own hero almost, right? It's so powerful, because it's like, oh wow, now we are not as impacted by these kind of expectations, whether we set them consciously or not, right? This letdown or that hurt or that disappointment, because it's like, we're already whole. We're not moving from that space of lack, right? We're moving from a space of fulfilled and whole, right? And when we can just practice getting in the now, it's so powerful, using your breath, meditation, right? There's tools, because then we can have the patience to let life organically unfold. And when we just surrender, right? I always think of it like, compared to surfing, it's for me, something I just compare it to.
Do you ever worry about judgment still?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think of course it still comes up for me in some ways, but I'll be very honest with you. Not that much.
Cool.
I didn't
think so.
Not that much. I think my reasons for not, are really protecting others. Not necessarily that I give a shit, right? Because I am fully embodied in my truth, right? And I'm fully at peace, and I still fight for that peace, right? Because there's life's still handing me stuff, right? I still got stuff, mountains to climb, right? But at least I have the tools. I'm equipped to go in.
Prepared,
Yeah. So, and I think the more that we push the boundaries of the normal, right, and we kind of break this conformed reality that we're all really in a lot of times, and we challenge that, I think it's pretty awesome. To see where it's going. Right? It's like, this is actually exciting, right? Because we start to see this transformation in the things around us when we lean into that, and when we, like I said, surrender, let go. Because life is going to happen regardless. And our need to control is really just from a place of trying to protect ourselves. Right. I mean, that's for every human being, right? Yeah. And again, that's where it's like our emotions, our instincts, right? They're actually guiding us and alerting us and telling us things. But if we're not in the present moment, in the here and now, how can we notice those physical sensations or tap into those things? It's hard.
Do you know something that's really brought my mind, give me the ability to do that, is thinking about death often. Not necessarily like my own death, but just how anything can change in end, because I realized, life can change very rapidly and very unexpectedly. Yes. And when it does, it may change to the extent there's things you're not going to be able to go back and change or fix. Sure. And when I realized that, how life can just pull the carpet from out underneath you, we jokingly, I would always say to her, I've talked about this, I think, on a lot of other podcasts that we've recorded, but it's so important to me. Like, we would be driving down the road, and because I'm kind of a jerk, I joke about things that, I got that military dark sense of humor. Yeah. But I would say stuff like our pit bull that we had. She died this year at 3. Oh. I don't know, what was that face? It was very.
I'm sorry. There's a spider. It's a little spider on my cup.
Okay. Anyway.
Go ahead.
Oh, there it's gone. See, it doesn't take much. No.
It's just on your leg now, Matt. It's fine.
I don't care.
No, I don't know. I didn't see it.
It was really little.
I would say stuff about my dog, be like, oh, she's so cute. We have about 11 more years, give or take, with her, because in pit bull lifespan. Well, she didn't last anywhere near that. She lasted another 6 months after. I would jokingly say that, but I would say stuff like that to her just because. She would be annoyed. For example, she'd be on her bed and be taking up half the bed while we're trying to sleep. And she was like, why does it sleep on your bed?
With my feet. Yeah. She'd always sleep at my feet.
But perspective, though, because what we would do now to have that dog back annoying the shit out of us.
You take my pillow, honey. You take my sock.
I'm laying on the floor, actually. Yeah, exactly. Take over the whole bed.
Yeah. I'll sleep on the floor. Yeah. But it's funny how perspective can change just like a snap of a finger, just like that. My neighbor calling. And thinking about death, it gives you a different type of appreciation. And I've heard other people like Akshay Nanavati, we had him on our podcast, I think 2-3 episodes ago. awesome individual that's crossing Antarctica unassisted, 110-day expedition. You know, if you got to do a shout out, him and his book Fearvana.
I think he just left, didn't he?
He just left for training in Greenland, I believe, for but this is it's only 350 miles he's going to travel, not the whole, it's like a small, it's crazy. It's crazy saying that. It's amazing. Still very dangerous,
absolutely. So crazy.
But he talks about death because he was very, very suicidal too. When he was in the Marine Corps, he experienced survivor's guilt, had a good buddy of his get killed by an IED. And he went from being very suicidal to the point, he was, into drugs and or drinking. And all of a sudden he just light switched. And he had somebody essentially save him and give him incredible advice and be a, godsend and turned his whole life around.
Yeah, he had mentioned something about, I don't want to say a therapist or whatever, something like that they talked about death. You know, I don't know what, I wish I could remember what exactly he said, but.
Well, his entire book, Fearvana, is about embracing, every emotion we experience is so important. And people associate fear as bad when fear is very good. And if you can use fear and embrace it in ways, it's it'll change your entire life. It goes back to the mindfulness aspect of things. Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine. I don't know what I was going to say. Sorry. I was just going to say it's not normal for people to talk about death and to have someone, a professional, if you will, talk to you about it. Maybe make you think differently about that kind of stuff.
I think it's uncomfortable, right? I think all of us,
we're all
try to escape the reality. That, hey, we come in here and none of us are getting out alive. That's the truth.
But if you treat life as such.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Then it becomes this really exciting thing, right? Because you realize how precious, you realize how fleeting every moment is.
You realize that you may not ever have a chance to drive 7 hours again to meet somebody.
That's right. Exactly. I did love the drive, though.
Yeah. Good. I'm so glad. Yeah.
So, great. I get to do it again today.
I loved it so much that
exactly. I'm going to do it again today. Yes. No, but it is. It's good. I feel like it's almost meditative, like I told you guys.
Yeah.
Zone out and drive is freeing,
Oh, that's cool.
Process. No, and I think you're so right, though. I really do. I think, the concept of death can be so scary for people, and it takes a lot of work, and each of us is going to have different beliefs tied to death, right? Or different fears or different just attachments in general, right? And I think that's why it's so important to go inward and to really look at kind of what is in there, right? Because I think there are things in our subconscious driving us that we have no idea and sometimes are kind of shocked by when we find out, it's what have you been doing in there, right? Or where did that belief come from? But it's true. We have to face these things, right? We have to have conversations about them and look at them, because I feel like if we don't, again, they're just manifesting in our body in ways that are extremely toxic for us, and it's part of life, right? And
for everything.
The more that we can kind of because you think about it's if you stand in this stance to life, we're closed off, right? But when we lean in and we just kind of have this open, curious stance, right, of radical acceptance of what is, and surrender to that, it's actually this beautiful experience. It's so beautiful.
Start opening your arms, letting stuff come in instead of blocking it out and stuff trying to get to you. And it could be love, people helping you or whatever, 100%. Trying to get to you, and you're so shut off.
Yes, exactly.
You need to just let it come to you.
And it's so hard, right? We have to get to that safe place to feel like we can have an open stance, right? Because we're closed off because our heart's been hurt, or we're afraid, or something is blocking us, right? And I think it's important to talk about those things and face those things, because there's so many of us that are now, through those hardships, but have not really talked about it. And for myself, even personally, this was such a big challenge to come in. I'm so grateful that you guys even were, holding space for me to come here and have a voice, right? And my story to be heard. So thank you for that. And I'm so grateful that you guys are inspired by it, because I feel like my true hope is that others can heal, right? That others can be empowered and they can find that peace.
Yeah.
Because there is freedom on the other side.
There is.
I heard a question asked in this. I love putting people on the spot, but I thought it was a pretty cool question. I heard another podcaster interview somebody, and they said, if you were getting on a rocket ship and you're about to leave Earth, and you're going to leave 1 30-second message or so, or however long you wanted, what would you say to either
humanity,
the world or somebody that may be going through just disgusting, horrible things, and they feel like they're hopelessly lost in life?
That's a great question. like a simple message of really, you know, move from a place of love in everything that you do, and be hopeful.
Yeah.
And be courageous, and know that when you live in the here and now and you put one foot in front of the other, right?
Yeah.
You can keep going.
Yeah.
And you will if you decide to.
And you'll see your life transform around you. Like, because mine is very similar. As I think if people, I don't care how bitter you are in life and how miserable you are of a person, how you treat people, try it for like 2 weeks. Just go out of your way to treat. And if you catch yourself being a jerk or a, you know what, like if you catch yourself, correct yourself, apologize to that person, try it for 2 weeks, watch your life transform in front of you. I mean, every single aspect of it, from your sleep to your happiness to your energy, and you'll be
your love for yourself.
Your love for yourself. Just, when I say be nice to everybody, I'm talking about your enemies too.
That's right.
With respect. I mean, you don't have to go out of your way, but like
you can have boundaries.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be hateful or anything. No.
Correct.
Don't.
And if you have treated somebody, if you've mistreated somebody, and like I have went out of my way to thank people this year, like I've literally went out of my way, made awkward phone calls, like, and I talked about this on a podcast episode. I went to a gas station with her, and we left this gas station, and this kid made such an impression on me, and I'm like, man, if I was, he was like 20 years old, I'm like, if I was his age, and somebody said something to me, it would mean a lot to me, you know, and so I called him up.
I called the gas station.
And we left, and it was a hard day. We were going to court and stuff, and I called and I asked for the kid because I saw his name badge. I actually remembered his name, and I called, asked to speak to him, and I did. I'm like, hey man, and he's like, oh yeah, and I told him who I was, and he knew who I was because it was a pretty cool,
like a couple minutes,
it was friendly interaction. And but I'm like, hey, whatever you do, I'm like, just don't stop being that positive version of yourself. And I'm like, because if somebody ever told me that when I was your age, so I'm a pretty positive person, like it would have transformed my life. And he thanked me so genuinely and purely for that phone call. Like oh man, you know, and
something like that could have changed his life just a little bit.
Well, but I remember people saying similar stuff to me, like my old chief of police, you know, he got me a job as a police officer with no academy. Yeah. And I had a badge and a gun working on the road for almost 2 years or so, you know, granted it fell through because of politics but either way, you know, it's just you can change somebody just off a little short interaction.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, like, and if you put that out there, you put that out there, whether it's a podcast or whether you're just going to the store and cashing out and buying beer or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right. It's so true. I'll tell you, this has become such a foundational piece of my existence. It's just gratitude, for one, right? Because it pulls us closer to compassion. It does. Because when we get really humbled and grateful for even the simplicities of like a hot shower, right? That's something every day. That it's like.
I thank God every day for my life. I thank God for her.
My gosh,
you know, and
or even just, right, like a safe space to sleep. Right? Some of these things that it's like when we really get down to just kind of the basics, you know, and then it makes us a little more compassionate and empathetic because we think about like, oh wait, I do have some pretty amazing things, right? But you have to slow down to look at them. And I think, like you said, it can change someone's whole life. I mean, even just, and it's so cliche, but it's so true. Smiling at somebody, right? For you have no clue. Everybody's going through something.
It's all
that we don't know
perspective.
about.
Everybody.
And that could literally change the trajectory of someone's life.
Mallory,
just a little act of kindness.
You reminded me, I was on my way home. This is last fall, and it was a really, really hard day. And it was a broken day, but I was going to a friend's birthday party, and he invited me. I feel guilty. I never see this friend very often. This friend is a pivotal person in my life. So I'm going to this birthday party, and I just had some bad news on the way there. Just got out of work. It's dark out. It's raining. Borderline freezing rain. And I'm at a stoplight, and I got tears streaming down my face. I was, again, having a very broken night. And I go to stop. I look over, this homeless guy standing there, and he's right next to my window. And he's standing there in the rain holding this sign. And I'm just like, I rolled the window down, and I gave him some money. And he appreciated it because I just put things in, like, my life sucks right now. And I look over, this guy standing in the rain freezing. And I'm like, it could always be worse. Always. You know, and I thanked him. I handed him money and thanked him. Like, you know, I'm like, God bless you, brother. And, and, you know, and hopefully I made a difference in that guy's life.
I'm sure.
But, it's just life is perspective.
It is.
Everything.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can come from a humble place and a kind place and a loving place, like you said, the ripple effect of that in this world, it could change.
We all have
everything.
the potential to change this entire world,
and
at least
like,
a little.
We all need love, and the people that are going through stuff need love, but it's almost like your enemies are those people that are, I don't want to say evil, but just doing really, really bad. They need more love. They need
man, I'll
compassion
tell you,
and
that part of the journey, right?
Yes.
Learning to forgive and learning to really have empathy and love and compassion for those that have hurt us in ways that are hard to articulate, right? Because it's so painful. But to really be able to step back and humanize them, right? And find a way to forgive, even sometimes when you don't get the apology, right? To find that forgiveness.
And you normally don't,
so
I don't think. So forgiving is so much more, I think, than what people really think.
Right.
I think something I've struggled with a lot is wishing like there's accountability on other people's end of things where you're like, they're not paying the price that they deserve. And it's like,
or so we think, right? Because our pain deceives us to believe things sometimes. Maybe we don't know the whole
in
story.
different ways. And I think people that do get away with doing things in this world, like they're going to pay the price inevitably in the end, or they already are.
I feel
and
like
maybe in ways worse than
we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will tell you personally, because I've had that struggle, right? Of feeling like, especially because I think there's been times in my life, it's been really hard to like stand in this place of like, I am through and through like a person that is grounded in integrity. Like it is who I am, right? So a lot of times I've had to take stances where it's like, you stand alone, right? A lot of times when you do the right thing, you are standing alone. And I've had that, right? Where it's like, sometimes people don't get that accountability, or so we think. But what I feel like gathered from all of the things in my life and in the forgiveness that I have found, and looking back now, it's like, I don't know if it's karma or whatever it is. And to me, it's kind of like where we move from internally, right? In this life, our intention, our space, what we put out into the world. I believe and have seen it happen in ways that never did I think they would, right? Things come back to us. Things come back to us. Whether it's karma, it's in the Bible too, right? It's like tenfold. There's so many ways throughout history that we hear about this, right? Or in science, right? It is the exchange of energy. It is, right? What we put out, it comes back. It's this constant giving and receiving. But I will tell you, I think they do. Right? I think they do. And I think the more we can let go of what we expect the accountability should look like, or expect how that should impact their journey, right? Because that's really coming from our place of pain. Like, well, I'm hurt by this, so you should be having to have this. Right? And when we can let go of that and realize, the universe is pretty good at working things out. And as much as it may not be in the timing that we expect, or in the
or in the way that we
or situation, the more we can surrender and have faith that it will, right? Things will work out. And truthfully, I mean, for me, it's like, for those people in my life, what I know to be true is what's coming. I know that it's a part of the journey, right? We have to go through those sad or hard things to be humbled and learn, or hopefully learn from, right? So I do know I have so much empathy for them, because I know when those things are coming, it's going to be a challenge, right? It's going to be painful. And I don't wish that on anyone. But I also have radically accepted that is life. Life is hard. And we have to learn and be accountable to ourselves, right? And to how are we moving through this life, right? Because that's the only thing we can really control.
Right. And it's not about them.
That's right.
You got to work on yourself.
Exactly.
And
because
contribute
back to that same point of
exactly.
what we are radiating is far more influential on others, right? By leading, walking and leading in that example, it's far more impactful, for people to see that. Because that's inspiring.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, if you have the power to harm someone because they harmed you, the real power is not having the ability to do it and not do it.
Exactly.
And that's something new. It's a new thought this past year that I've realized.
Well, I find a lot of power and just being able to have the power and not have to use it. Like, what is it? Jordan Peterson, talks about, like, you want to be a threat. You want to be a warrior.
Yeah.
And hold that back and being able to be disciplined and just even knowing you're capable of extreme,
adversity.
Yeah. And knowing that you're capable of being able to, physically, stand up for yourself and whatnot. Yeah. And like, I find so much value. I bought a heavy bag about a year and a half ago, and I've invested so much time into that. Yeah. And it's so cool because I'm like, man, like, I wouldn't want to, if I could go back in time and like spar my old self, I'm like, it's cool how much gratification and confidence I've gained out of that, and like running and stuff. And like running's my antidepressant. And I wonder how many people in this world, I wonder how many soldiers would be alive right now that no longer are with us if they were pushed to like, listen, I know you're having a hard time. We need physical fitness exercise will help you. Yeah. And let's set up a good physical fitness routine, and I'll be your buddy and I'll work out with you on these days, and like getting somebody maybe with the VA aligned with somebody assigned to individual people.
Like a mentor.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. That's why I'm so excited about it. Cause it's like, I'm telling you, it's like, so even on my logo, it says moving mindfully, and then the little thing is get moving. That's exactly what it says, because it's like,
I'll put a cover of your logo on this podcast, like when we are playing this right now, so people can see it with a link to your site and stuff.
Yes, because I'm telling you, I'm like, I believe exactly what you're saying is so true. Yeah. And that's why the mentorship piece is so important for this, because sometimes we need an accountability partner, right?
Oh, you do?
I think in just every situation, again, so unique, right? So hearing what someone's needs are, or being able to see that, and at least try, right? Like we talked about, maybe just try to see if we can show them some love and support. It can go such a long way. It really can.
Yeah.
I want to say really quick, and I'm going to clip this off and put it at the beginning of the podcast, because they say you got to specifically call stuff out like this, and I hate doing it, but people don't realize how valuable it is of interacting with podcasts, videos, and episodes. And like, obviously, if anybody actually watches the whole episode, like, they're going to know this is pretty important stuff.
Yeah.
And when you subscribe, and share and interact with stuff like this, it helps more than people could ever imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
And the vast majority of stuff, like, for example, the fire department episode I posted the other night, it got a lot of people to view it. Like, there was like, I think 2 subscribers out of like 280 or 290 people that watched. And it was a lot of hours watched on it too. It was like 35 hours of episode viewing the first night, which I appreciate so much. Like, that's valuable. But if people just click which takes 2 seconds. Like, if people had any idea how much time and effort we have invested behind this, I think they would feel a lot more obligated to be like, all right, I'm going to subscribe. And if people share it, or even the shorts.
There's not a lot of comments. I want to know what people think. Yeah. I want, like, they can critique us.
Yeah, talk shit. It's fine. Tell us what we could do better. I'm okay with it.
Just something, and
engagement.
Exactly.
Interaction there with them. And I think, like you said, maybe speaking to that, right, in the beginning, and like you said, making sure that you're putting emphasis on it and the why behind it. I think if you share that, like, people, they might realize, like, we don't know what we don't know.
I just hate feeling like, oh, look at me, like, subscribe, share. Like, I just like, I'm one of those now, really. But no, I think it's valuable.
It's part of it, though. Even like, challenge yourself to look at that from like another lens, right?
I know.
Like, what about right? Like you just said, the impact and the importance of that, because not only just your time invested, but the audience that you can reach, right? If that does happen. So look at it from a place. It's not about, oh, look at me, but it's like, oh, look how important these things are, like you said, right? And even rephrasing that inside of your own brain, it's amazing how, like, our energetic stance, right, or how we feel will shift as well. So you won't feel the words coming out may not feel as uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Or like, I mean, this is about sounds me. So weird and awareness, like all of this that we're talking about. More people will see it and share it, and that's how it spreads
for sure.
We'll definitely have to do another episode. And like, I can't wait for there to be a day, like, 'cause she wants to really tell her story now. Well, I don't know if she really wants to.
I will someday.
It's just, I think it's important. I think if you want to go full throttle and you want to be all in, you got to be able to talk whatever you want to be able to talk about. And especially with you, like, yours is other than concern about others, like, there's no reason. It stinks for, like, Mallory and I, we can't for different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk about my story in so much detail that I'm not worried about an attack from any sort of whatever thing. I think it is just about not even judgment, because I really, I'm
around
not,
you that,
or, job stuff. I just want to be smart.
Yes.
Like her story gives me hope because like she's went through hard times and she's turned her life around, and I look at who she is as a person now, and I'm like, okay, because there's people that I'm worried about right now,
absolutely,
that are going through the same type of stuff that I'm like, man, ironically, like the biggest hope, the biggest light in my life I have is my wife. Like, how fortunate am I to have that?
But again, it's like maybe I went through that stuff to be his rock.
I've said
right
that.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like you said before, everything is building that armor almost
exactly
right, around us.
And I'm like, got you, babe. I got you. To prepare us,
so right, because exactly like there is a soul connection here with you guys, right?
Oh yeah,
and there's a need, and it's like almost life handed you what you needed, so then you kind of continue to give that support, and it's amazing. But that's how interconnected life is, truly, right?
And when
I
you
think, like
see
you said,
that,
there's no coincidence.
There isn't. And when you look back on everything that's happened, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well,
That was loud.
that was loud. But
Test
yeah,
one,
like
two.
when you
Okay. It's not broke.
when you see that and recognize that, and you put all the pieces together, and it's like it just is like insane in my mind how things work.
Yes.
And
Yes.
It's just weird.
It's so, and that's the thing too that I think is like if we can all start to like make or put more focus onto that right in our life, the excitement and the energy and the infinite opportunities that lie there, right, are actually so exciting that it's like it's hard to even articulate how that feels, because once you've like experienced that,
like when you're talking about, okay, this is happening, what is it teaching me?
Yes.
This door's going to open, I'm ready for it. And people normally don't think like that.
Yeah.
And if they did, the energy would be shot in so many good different ways. And
well, and in a situation for me personally, that's like I could have taken, leaving corporate America, and it could have been this really negative thing for me. And not to say that it didn't have some very negative, hard implications, right, situationally. But for me, it's like I am on this path. And for me, it's like I do believe it's all happening for us, right? And I'm grateful for those challenges. Like I said, I'm grateful for those moments, right? 10 years ago, would I have felt that way? Probably not, right? I'd have been like, this is the worst thing ever. It's happening to me. And I would have been victimized, right?
I've said that this year many times. I'm like, man, with what we've been through, I'm like, and it takes a lot to get to this point, but I'm like, I wouldn't change anything that's happened. Now, if I could have gotten to the same exact point, not going through difficult times, would I guess.
But you wouldn't.
But I wouldn't.
Right. Yeah.
That's just the truth of the
Because you need
matter.
those things to shape you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Into that.
You need that contrast, because if life was all smooth and daisies, and like you wouldn't appreciate anything.
You wouldn't grow. You wouldn't level up,
No, and that's why I do think it, like you were saying to your point, like we should totally do another podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, we will.
Like some women and like going into those like exact details, because I think there's so much power in those examples and in situations, because when you start talking about real abuse and you start talking about some really hard things that there are a lot of people facing in ways that are real.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very real.
Take the mask off, right?
Yep.
And get down to the situations. I think there's something really powerful in that for the individual to be able to speak that out if that's what they need, right? For their healing journey. But for others to hear that, because we heal through human connection, right? To not feel so alone. That's how we truly heal.
Yeah.
And man,
I would love to get a group together and talk. I've
we go to Ohio.
never done that.
Yes,
We need to get out more.
Yes.
Like we went to DC to record with Bernard Tony Jr. and like, I guess I'll just do a quick just mention. We had. We recently had Nick Lavery, which is, he's a Special Forces combat vet. We're going to be recording in their studio in Tennessee, December 2nd. And like, this is, I was mind blown when they responded, and it's funny because when they first responded, like it was, like, just go to my website. And I was like, oh, okay, the default answer. So,
I will do it though.
Went through the motions, went to the website, applied, and like, his agent or whatever reached out and officially accepted last week. And
that's exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is amazing, guys.
We still have to, I still have to edit the episode. We recorded with General Lucky, 3-star general, 43-year Green Beret. Just an incredible experience. I'm like, why? How am I able to talk to these amazing people? And then, like, you're no less amazing than them. If anything, you're one of the most real people. No, it's just, it goes back to perspective. Like, and it's cool because a lot of people say, like, we all put our pants on in the morning in a relatively same way.
If we can humanize one another more, again, like that corporate world, it opened my eyes so much to how in some organizations, some places, right, like there are some skewed views that I'm like, hey, we are all putting our pants on in the morning. Like you said, that saying is so true. It's like we are all
we're all human.
We're all made up of the same components. We might have some different chemicals and stuff, but
like we're all born the same. We're all gonna die.
That's
like
right.
It's
something else very valuable to me that I'd like to share with anybody, even you. It's like on those shitty days, like if you can push yourself to do like extra meditation, or if you invest in yourself harder on those shitty days where you don't feel like it, because I imagine there's times you've meditated or worked out that you don't feel like it. Generally, whenever I tell people, if you ever see like, hey, I brag on Facebook, I just broke my record. I did over 10 miles and 300 push-ups. You can probably say, it doesn't mean my life is bad. It just means like I might be stressed out and I'm trying to counter that with physical exercise.
Dude, I'm telling you.
When it's raining, I realized there's so much value in running in the rain or running in uncomfortable conditions. If it's snowing out, or we run on the beach intentionally, and we'll intentionally go into the deep sand. Till we can't physically run in the deep sand anymore.
I'm like,
just
push yourself. And that's where tapping into breath, man. It's amazing what we can push through. When I used to teach power yoga, it's like, man, I'm telling you, people, it's like, I realize they think like hot yoga a lot of times is, it's too hot for me, I can't do it. And it's like, what it is, it's really overcoming the mind.
Because we're so much more capable. Like I realized that in the military and like hiking mountains with her, like, because we did a 15-mile 4-mountain hike. And I remember
so much fun.
Half an hour into it, I felt like I was dying. I'm like I'm not going to be able to do this.
Hardness of it just stayed hard.
It never got any harder.
Worse. Right. It just was hard.
Level hard.
Exactly.
Exactly.
100%. That's so funny. But it's just like when we do our cold plunges, it's not during that, minute or two, we're like trying to focus on our breathing because it's like you hyperventilate. It's so cold. But then like that's really a shitty time, but you get out, you feel so much better. It's so insane. So it's like life.
If we could do this full time,
get through it, breathe.
Resets your whole nervous system.
Yes, it's amazing.
If we could invest, like do cold plunges every day. If I could get up in the morning every day and run, which we have gotten up early and ran before work and stuff. Generally it's after work, but and I'm like, man, if I could replace the 9 to 5 someday and do this full time and travel and do this, like not only would we be successful, but we'd be able to help. We'd be able to help people, and we would do some incredible things if we had,
I think you're on the path. Right?
I know, but
I think you're there, right? You're laying the groundwork, and I think it takes time.
I know,
and what I realized too is I almost am grateful sometimes when things don't come to fruition in my timing, because it's like when I do get there, I'm like, I still had some things I needed to learn.
Yes,
I still need to like shut a few things or like learn a few new things, right? Or have a perspective change on something. And trusting again, like it's so hard, right, to have that faith. That, like the timing is.
I was gonna say the timing is meant to happen when it happens.
Yes. Yeah.
And the door is shut, the door is open, and you everything is thrown in our lap at the perfect timing when the universe wants to give it to you, and what you need.
Enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey there. It's hard because it's like, okay, well, especially when you're self-critical, right? And we push ourselves and we feel like, well, I have to, right?
I said that to Tyler. My son, we hiked, we did an 18.5-mile hike about a month and a half ago now. And, like beat the crap out of both of us. And he's in pretty good shape for a 15-year-old. And I'm in pretty good shape for being 37. I'm not out of shape. And like, that was pushing ourselves. But, and I'm like, we get to the top. I'm like, Tyler, what do you think the best point of this hike is? And he's like, and he knew it was a trick because he knows how corny I am right now. And I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, just probably the top. I'm like, no. The journey to the top is by far, and like, and it was cool because he kind of knows where I'm at. He's in a similar place, he's not as like taking pictures and stuff as I am, but he never seemed to judge. Like, and he loved all the pictures I'm taking, and like, and him and I, like, because we both had a very difficult year, and like, we had this beautiful, awesome experience together, and like, I wish I did a better job, and I try to do a better job making more of those memories now, because before we know it, they're gone. Those opportunities are gone.
I think, like you said, being mindful of it and knowing that that's priority, right? I think it's like our brain kind of goes into action, right? It's like all of a sudden we start creating all these things. When we know it's like, well, I'm aware of this. And it's like, putting that intention to it. And you can totally create that, and you are.
You're right.
And have grace with yourself, and know that, it takes time to get to all of the things we want to do and all of the pieces we want to, pile on to who we are. Right. And that, like you said, aligning to, it's the journey.
Yeah.
You're on it, you're doing the work and show yourself that support, that love and that encouragement, because it's like, it's here and now.
And I try to soak that in so much. And it's like, I'm aware that that's what I'm trying to do. And I feel like I can't soak it in enough sometimes, you know?
I do. Yes. I'm like, yes. I'm telling you, I feel like something so powerful for me that I try to use is like, when I notice that I'm doing that and I'm like getting out of the moment, it's like, I really use, like I said, physical, whether it's movement. So whether it's like even just washing the dishes, right? There's a lot of like skills that we can use to get out of our emotional brain and into like the intellectual brain.
I've heard that a lot lately. Small tasks that are very easy that you can complete. Start there.
Exactly. And just like noticing, like for me, a good one that I did, when I first started doing some of this stuff was washing dishes. I would be like, how does the water actually feel on my hands? Right? What is the movement of me scrubbing this dish? And then being grateful that I have this dish, right? And just that moment of those sensations and that complete activity. Right? And then all of a sudden, by the time I was done, and I mean, the whole time your mind's going to keep trying to pull you, right? And it's like, okay, I hear you. And that was really important. And for me, personally, is to like, hear those thoughts, validate them, because then it's like all of a sudden it takes a pause. Like your brain just really kind of wants an answer. If you have that repetitive thought popping up, it's like, okay, I hear you, right? And I promise I'm going to come back. Right, I'm doing this. And it's amazing how like those little things do make such a difference.
They do. And it sounds funny, but it's so true.
Yeah. And it can reset where you're at. Like if you're just emotionally having a really tough moment, right? Like doing things to get out of the emotional mind and into the actual intellectual. I always think actually there's this like very balanced space in the middle, right? You have your emotional mind, you have your intelligent mind, your intellectual mind, and then there's this kind of sweet spot in the middle, and that's the wise mind. And that's where we want to stay. And it's like when we can become so in tune with ourselves, we can start to notice, right? Am I too far here? Am I too far there? And that's when we get really in touch with like who we are, what are our beliefs and behaviors, right? And we can start to then tap in and, like I said, interact, right, with things and get some distance between the reactions and those very those moments of suffering, because that's what it is, right? When we're in so much pain or our mind is going or whatever it is, it's like that's suffering, We're creating that, right? And actually catch it before it starts, right? Use these tools and kind of pull back into that sweet spot, the wise place where we're balanced.
Balance,
life.
That's everything. Trying to balance is not always easy, but
no, and that's just it though, right? And like surrendering to that, like life is hard. It is. It can be challenging. Right?
I've pretty much straight up pulled out completely of all the things that didn't really add value to my life over a while. Like it stinks though, because I don't really play video games anymore. We very, very rarely watch movies. It's generally, but I'm not complaining. Like we have days out in the boat.
Something new. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You're creating this
we enjoy this.
Yes.
You're making space.
Yeah.
Because I've always found a lot of value in just talking to people, and kind of probably I imagine you could relate here, and both of you really. Like when I was in the military, I got along with everybody, and there was no color, there was no white, black, Spanish, like it was just, we're all one. And, I've always loved interacting with people that are much different than me. And it's funny. And I talked about this on another podcast. Like I have a lot of friends, they would say things to me. Like, I was a ball buster, and like, man, like, you're the only white guy I know that would ever get away with that shit. They're just my brothers. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. The camaraderie.
Yes.
It's very different than anything else.
But, I've always, I was never siloed to like one group. And I was like that in high school too. I was friends with everybody, and I don't know. I think that's why I like
the
this.
Same.
Yeah.
I feel like I have no type. I have no one specific group. It's like I definitely am. Like you said, life
you
is
love
just
people, and
I feel people more than I see them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's really, I feel them before I see them. Which I trust my instincts these days.
Me
more, so
too. I'm always like my gut and intuition, like we talked about last night, is like I listen to that hardcore.
Well, it can help us navigate our relationships and life in a much more healthy way, right? Because we can be in tune with where we're at, and what are we actually aligning with, and is going to be good and healthy for our, kind of where we're at. It's important, and if not, it's like life can sometimes just catch us off guard.
It does.
It can get interesting, but it's like, that's why it's so important to stay in touch. And it's, I'll tell you in the beginning, man, when I first started practicing mindfulness, I can remember days that I was like, I don't want to be mindful right now. You know what I mean? I don't want to do this. Like, I was so exhausted mentally from having to catch every single thought that I was just like, you know, there was times that I was just like, man, it's so foreign. It was so exhausting. It was much easier for me to stay in that depressed state. You know, it's just like what you hear about with, you know, alcoholism or addiction or any of these things. It's much easier to stand still. Because we know that. Yeah. Right? We know that space.
It's familiar. Right.
Yeah. Yep. And letting go of some of that was actually very uncomfortable because my body and my brain was so used to those chemical reactions when I didn't have them, or the chaos, you know, and a lot of us, I think, that heal from a lot of trauma or chaos, you know, we experience that, you know, you feel almost this like disconnect for a minute, right? As you kind of get back online in other parts. And it's really amazing. It is. The work is, I'm so glad that we're just in each other's lives now, guys.
Me too.
I feel like
I just wish we lived closer.
So I know.
Are you going to eat lunch before you leave or no?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
And she's like, I need
we were
food.
hoping you're going to say, I'm starving.
Yes, I'm starving. My stomach was growling during the sound of it. You'll probably hear it in one of the recordings.
That's so
do you like
so loud.
Do you like Mexican?
Yeah.
Oh, we should go to
Mexican it is.
Cinco de Mayo in Sylvan Beach. We love it. And phenomenal food, phenomenal prices.
As long as they're open
Do a shout out to them if they're open Sundays. I think they are.
I'm open for that for sure.
Yeah, it's so good.
Mallory, thank you. It was great.
We love you.
Again.
I love you guys seriously so much. And I do believe like that we came into each other's life for a reason. And I hope that I can do anything in my power to help uplift you and support you guys. Because I'm so excited for you.
Check out her nonprofit, you know.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll put links and whatnot into this video. And appreciate everybody's love and support.
Yep, absolutely. All the time.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Take care.
Hope you enjoy.
Yeah.